Welcome to the Story and Critique Show. I'm Kauffman, and today I'm going to read your stories from the community. It's going to be a live reading and a live critique. You can submit right now. All you have to do is hop in the YouTube description down below and click on the link. I've read well over 200 stories on the critique stream and many, many more to come. So welcome to the 46th episode of the critique stream. And once again, I'm Kauffman, daily writing streamer and fantasy author and believer that if you have a writing problem, just put a dragon on it. Okay, so we're going to hop right into it. Let's hop into how do you submit. So all that you have to do is click on that link below. Once your story is submitted, it will be put in the queue, and then it will be queued up for either this show or the next one. So if I don't get to yours today, no worries, because we always have such a backlog of stories sometimes. You can submit all types of stories, whether you're a fantasy author, sci-fi, romance, children's. We also get different formats. We've got in screenplays, we've got in poetry, we get all the different types. The value that you're getting is you get to hear it read live and you're getting feedback. And I promise you, the feedback will always be kind and it will always be clear. So that way you know which actionable advice to take. So that way you can make that next draft as awesome as possible and help hopefully get it published. Okay, so once we've gotten through the submission, how do I go about the critique? For those of you who are familiar, you guys know what the process looks like. I like to use a very straightforward critique guideline. I will ask myself this: what are the things that I like to look for when reading a story aloud? I break it down into these 5 elements of writing, right? Character, world building, dialogue, plot, or style. I like to ask myself, what are the elements that work really well? And then which ones could be improved by making it clear, like, okay, well, clearly the story, there's something wrong with it. And maybe it's because the character just doesn't make sense because they said A, B, C. I know this is clearly a character development opportunity. This way, you can take it back and then go and improve your own writing the next time you're revising your story. Perfect. And I highly, highly, highly recommend join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. If you're reading along, whether you're here in the live or you're watching this on the replay, and there's something that stands out to you, and you're like, hey, you know what? I really like that. Drop a comment, because I guarantee you the author is most likely watching this and looking for value. But if there's something like, hey, that doesn't make sense, or hey, maybe I agree with Kauffman, or something altogether, let us know, because our goal, if we're submitting, is we want to make our stories as awesome as possible so we can get them out in the world and tell the stories that we want to tell. As long as you are clear and kind about your comments, all feedback is good feedback. All right, so beautiful. And as a side note, for those of you submitting, you know the same old, I will be highlighting your stories as I go. Doesn't mean a good or a bad thing. It's just a way for me to keep track of my thoughts as I'm reading the stories. All right, perfect. So let's hop into the first story. We are going to be queuing at the top of the show. Let's see. Let me pull up here at the top of the stream. Another form of cancer. It's a sci-fi by Engi. So this is going to be a science fiction. This is a science fiction story called Another Form of Cancer. And let me pull it up here. All right. In a universe where mercy is a rounding error, the Cordar erase rival worlds with surgical precision, convinced that perfect optimization is victory itself. Yet, as their flawless calculus spreads ever outward, an unaccounted variable slips into the equation, threatening a cost even they might not be willing to pay. All right, and I am queuing it right up here. Bear with me just one moment. All right, and we are all set. Okay, perfect. And without further ado, all right, my friends, let me make sure I got the guidelines pulled up. We'll make that a little smaller. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, perfect. So now we can focus on another form of cancer. By the way, Blast, welcome back, my friend. Glad to have you in the stream. Okay, so without further ado, let's hop into it. Make sure I have my highlighter, and I am ready. Another form of cancer by Sci-fi by author Engi. There's some cruel irony to their impending fate. Despite all the horrors they've committed, it's hard not to pity them. It's hard not to look up at the stars and wonder where they'll go when they burn out. Perhaps the purpose of life in this universe really was love, fulfillment, trying to make the world a better place. Or maybe it was much simpler and they figured it out and accepted it easier than us. To Andy. A suboptimal attempt at preemptive extermination. Dear Professor Dale, I was delighted to receive your letter in my office this very morning. Even more delighted to find out you had an interest in my area of expertise. Your idea to write a book about the nature of interstellar conflict is a great one, and by all means, you will have my contribution. Aside from this letter, I listed an extensive amount of our best articles and literature available on the topic, as well as a digital copy of them for your convenience. However, as per your very request, I shall provide my own insight on the topic, as it would be a waste of both of our time for me to simply reply with a reading list for you. When debating interstellar conflict of any kind, no case comes more often than the Cordar and their affairs. Your species is relatively new to the conglomerate, but they need no introduction. Even so, I believe that as a Solarian, I may provide a particular insight into the nature of our estranged, systematic cousins. The Cordar are undeniably efficient and remarkable at whatever they focus on. Their favorite word, and the only one they'd ever use as a compliment, would be optimal. Yes, indeed. Cordar planets are marvels of engineering and efficiency, to a point it is suffocating. Their standard living space is nothing more than 1.8 m squared, packing thousands upon thousands of them in a single square kilometer. Their sewage is treated back into drinkable water. The bodies of their deceased are chopped up and served as rations back to the population. You'll never find a Cordar complaining unless it's about inefficiency. Their very biology denies them complex emotions, such as bonding or grief, which in most eyes makes them pitiful creatures. Now, they are a fairly peaceful species, but as a Solarian, I can assure you this is not out of benevolence. Cordar warfare follows the first strike advantage. Across our shared history, with my cradle world being just a few million kilometers away from theirs, Cordar never once declared war on us formally. They would always attack first and unexpectedly, targeting what was vital for our defenses and civilians. Wars against them were points of historical population lows and near extinction for our species. Against all odds, we repelled attacks on our home world long enough to colonize a second planet to ensure our survival. The Cordar didn't follow us there. One day, they issued a surrender notice. Not a request, they simply said in cold terms that the war had ended and we've kept our planet. Diplomats curiously inquired as to why such a sudden decision. The response? The cost of invading you simply outweighed the mineral resources of your planet. Continuing the war isn't optimal. All right. True to their nature, the Cordar held no grudge. The attacks against us weren't fear, ideology, or even religion. It was a statistical choice. They had more to gain by conquering our planet than by trading with us. Of course, they frequently reevaluated said balance as we had several wars after that, which eventually ended with us losing our cradle world. The Cordar offered no condolences, no memorials to soldiers, theirs or ours. They had simply secured a valuable mining site, nothing else. Our civilizations kept growing side by side, although because of the Cordar's brutal efficiency, we lost the space race to our planets and stars. The reason as to why they are now as powerful as they are. With most planets available conquered, the Cordar, as well as us, turned our heads to the other systems in such an unassuming endeavor. We found a main sequence star, 107 light years away from our general position. The 3 innermost planets were spotted, deemed valuable for mining expeditions, and through a declaration by the Cordar claimed a population of 500 Cordar were put in stasis and shot into space. In a journey that would take nothing short of millennia, there was no rush to waste any powerful engines on the ships. The Cordar had no resource scarcity, and no one would try and race them to it. Most of the conglomerate had already been a past victim of their attacks. The Cordar paid mind to the planet they sent towards. So did we. It was not only habitable, but inhabited. Thousands of years after the mission, we began to see lights and detect gibberish radio signals from the system. The Cordar didn't mind. Their post-morality society cared little for what was considered at the time a barely noticeable species. Around 109 years passed after the spacecraft sent by the Cordar were estimated to arrive at the system. Surely, the lights would fade from the third planet soon. They didn't. The next month, after some confusion, and without warning, a series of projectiles close to light speed, 98.6 according to our best guesses, made contact with planets in the Cordar's home system. It wasn't a single one either. A swarm of estimated 30 interstellar bullets hit every planet in the system, even the uninhabited. Cordar population dropped from a respectable 37 billion to about 10 billion, scattered across stations, mining platforms, and other planets outside their main system. The attacker was the planet the Cordar had attempted to colonize all those thousands of years ago. By the speed of the projectiles and a bunch of other math, it was concluded the attack was launched shortly after, if not before. The Cordar vessels would have made themselves known to the population of the planet, an immediate retaliation. To this day, we don't know who those attackers are, but in the light of events just a few years prior, they're likely dead. What happened next is fresh news. The Cordar did what they always did. They weighted the options and outcomes, and this time they judged swiftly. Whatever this race was, they were prone to conflict. Their mere existence would ensure that they would get exponentially better technology and finish the job on the Cordar. Their solution was the extinction of the alien species. The Cordar always had extinction devices, weapons made to completely erase a civilization from a planet, be it via radiation poisoning, viruses, or a big enough explosion. Their choice to not use them in wars wasn't out of mercy, but because their weapons can cause such damage to the target that extracting resources becomes extremely costly. This time, it was worth it. Their weapon of choice, the realistic kill vehicle, or RKV, was perhaps the most merciful end a civilization could encounter at their hands, and the very thing they were hit with. A 1-ton tungsten slug, accelerated to 98% of the speed of light, aimed directly at the target. The sheer speed and mass of the slug would release such energy that the very axis and even speed of the planet would be altered forever. 6 were launched just a few years ago, with plans to launch 6 more for each planet in the system that this species could possibly be hiding on. Plans to bombard the entire system with radiation are underway to avoid survivors in ships or even in smaller bases. A while ago, I had the opportunity to talk to a Cordar, and while I doubt they'll ever read a book that isn't of their own making, I'll refrain from saying his name. I asked him, aware of their unfeeling nature, about the recent calamity that struck their kind. I'll transcribe his answer as faithfully as possible. It was a miscalculation on both our behalf. We assumed the planet wouldn't have the technology to defend itself by the time our ships arrived, and evidently, we were wrong. There's no shame in admitting We made a mistake in our models. Their miscalculation came from the nature of their attack. It was chaotic, excessive, and left enough survivors to rebuild and retaliate. I like to be clear. The order to extinguish them isn't out of revenge. It's simply optimal for our continued existence. Their advancements are noted, accounted for, and will be bygone soon. There's no hatred in what we do. I inquired again. I asked about mercy, about the brutality and certainty which they used in warfare. And again, he gave me another answer, the tone of which was so dead. I would have preferred hearing it from a computer. Mercy isn't optimal. Survivors retaliate, as evidenced by our own actions. What you describe as brutality is simply the most efficient way to fight a war, without warning, without prisoners, and without need for a second strike. The recent events prove that the first strike advantage is universal. Even if executed poorly by an evidently afraid sapient race. Most importantly, it proves that sapience itself is a threat to our continued existence as a species. All right, and I am going to end the reading there. All right, welcome. Oh man, what an interesting piece. I feel like I got so much fun things in that piece. I feel like it was really interesting that we're getting a direct letter to the reader itself, and really it's like to the professor, but it feels like it's going to the reader itself. And we're getting this full exploration of what's going on with this intergalactic war with this species with the Cordar. I think I would say that there was a lot of really interesting world building that was really, really fun. I had a lot of fun with the way that they've gone about building out this very interesting alien species. And now I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued by seeing how the plot line is going to be extended and see what happens by the end of the story. It's interesting because the story's title is what was that? The title of the story was once again another form of cancer, right? So this is a sci-fi called Another Form of Cancer, and I'm like, interesting. Interesting. So it makes me think then that the writer, this alien species is basically kind of using, it seems like, a radiation technology to kill off the other worlds, and it's interesting. It then makes me think like, okay, so they're in an intergalactic conflict, and it's not like a head-on-head like war like you would think. They're basically using other means to exterminate other species, which is a really fascinating take on warfare, right? Something that's not in stories a lot of time. It's not done as frequently, right? A lot of times with wars and battles, it's like a bunch of people going head-on-head, clashing against each other. So I think it's a really interesting take, and I'm very curious to see how the story progresses. Now, let's hop into the some of my critiques and notes. So when I think about what really worked, and by the way, I would love to hear, what did you think in the chat? What really stood out to you? Was there something that you really liked about some of the writing, or was there a moment that you're like, hey, that's actually very, very cool? I'd love to hear, drop a comment. So when I think about what really worked for me, I would say that I was definitely a fan of the world building. I think the world building was probably its strongest bit. Um, what's interesting is I actually do think that the pieces of dialogue, it was very used sparingly, but I think the pieces of dialogue were actually used very well. I think there's a formatting opportunity for the way the dialogue was used, but I think overall, I think the dialogue was used well. I'm very curious about the plot. I'm very, very curious about the plot. And then opportunity wise, I think it might be in the structure ish. I would say it's probably in the structure, the character development, but we'll kind of see. I'm kind of let's hop into it. Let's see what we got. So when I think about what works, first off, I always love when you have an opening like this, right? And it kind of gives you that sense of, okay, before the story starts, it's like the quote, right? The quote before the story starts. This was actually really cool. I thought that was a good, nice touch. Okay. So starting it off as a letter, I think is a really smart call. I think it makes it clear to the reader what type of experience we're about to start off into. And then I know that I had forgotten to share this before I started, but I believe that this is a short story. I want to say that this is a short story. Yes, yeah, so this is a short story. And let's see. So I thought that was nice. Okay. And even though this is really addressed to Professor Dale, really since the entire story is written in the tense of it being a letter, you have to do a lot of subtext. You have to do a lot of you have to make a lot of references to build out the character development for it's really your narrator, right? Because you're really wanting the character to connect with your or you're really wanting the reader to connect with your narrator, which is really interesting. All right. And then let's see. So species is relatively new, but they need no introduction. Even so, I believe that as a Solarian, I may provide a particular insight. So this was really well done. I think this is a nice, easy way to I think they have to do a lot of these types of things, right? So by the time I get to the end of the first page, I know that our writer, our narrator, is a different species, and they are a different species that is really going to address and tell us about what's going on with this the Quartar conflict, which is interesting. So I think this is definitely a very unique style in that it's framed like a letter. Now, let's see. Their sewage is treated back into drinkable water. So what they do is then they give us a kind of a breakdown of who the species is and what is going on with the species. Right. So we get a couple pages where we're like, okay, this is what the Quartar do. Quartar warfare always follows the first strike advantage. Okay, cool. So this is basically who the Quartar are. Now, when I think about what really worked for me, I like that they do a description of the Quartar, and I almost ask myself if I wanted to get to what the conflict was a little sooner, because there's just so much world building. When you do stories like this, and when you really focus on building out so much of like the species and what's going on, the reader is first off they're like, okay, so I'm going along for this story. And if you do too much world building, you might potentially lose the reader. So I think if I were to work on revising or hopping into this, then I would probably limit down and narrow down just a little bit some of this early introduction to the alien species. I think overall was good, but I think condensed a little bit so we can get to what the conflict is, right? Because the reader wants to get I want to know what is the specific conflict. Let's see. Because even from the beginning, it doesn't really tell us about what the conflict is. Yeah, because even from the beginning, it doesn't really tell us what the conflict is at all. Let's see. And I think we then get into the conflict in a couple pages into it, I believe. Yeah, even as I'm looking at this. But then their use of dialogue is actually really, really interesting and very well done. So they're like, the cost of invading you simply outweighed the mineral resources of your planet, continuing the war is an optimal. I'm like, okay. Kind of liked when they did this because it gives a little bit more flavor to some of the diplomats of the world. And it gives us like another character type without really having to go into depth. I did kind of like that. I thought that was a nice flavor touch. All right. And then let's see, we kind of go more into more about the Kodar. In such an unassuming endeavor, we found a main sequence star. All right. And then we do a lot of explanation around what's happening with the Kodar. And I think I asked myself, which part did I want to get to sooner? Deemed valuable. Yeah, and I'm asking myself, I probably wanted to get to I think this part. Actually, so I mean, this whole thing is basically giving pretext on why the Kordar are attacking because they were attacked by another species. What happened next is fresh news. The Kordar did what they always did, they and outcomes, and this time they judged swiftly. So I think we want to get to this part a little sooner because this was like, okay, this is kind of the conflict that I want to be involved in. This is the conflict that I want to know what's going on with the core story, and I think this is what started pulling me in again. So I think I wanted to get to this moment a little sooner. And then we kind of started going into a little bit of the warfare and why the court, what the court are doing. Now, I know they didn't really touch on specifically what was happening with our planet, the protagonist planet, or Doctor Professor Dyer, the who the letter is addressed to. But I could tell it's probably getting to that in the next story beat would be my guess. So I think I think it's really interesting the way that was done like that. And planets to bombard the entire system with radiation are always, yeah. So I think this is all starting to lead up to what the warfare is going to look like in the next section. Oh, gotcha. Okay, and I think I was almost at that section, the end of that first chapter, anyways. Yeah, so it looks like they do the framework where they do letters. Yeah, so they kind of break it up, break the short story up into different letters, and the different letters are structurally cool. Okay. Yeah, so I think that would be my recommendation. I think we want to get through this first letter a little sooner, so that way we can kind of start getting into the meat of the conflict, right? Because really, we have to think about it from a character development standpoint and from a story standpoint, right? Well, we do want to know about like the plot and what's going on. At the heart of it, we want to be able to connect with what the we want to really be able to connect with why the how with either the core character or protagonist or with some type of emotional thing that's going on in the story. So I think that's definitely really, really cool. All right, my friends. Well, thank you. So, thank you so much. I think that was definitely super fun, and I am definitely looking forward to hearing more, and kind of seeing like how do you finish up the story, and is it I like really want to know how this conflict ends. Is this like is the species going to be wiped out? But it's a really interesting format, and I always love when writers take will attempt different styles of writing that we don't see as common. All right. So thank you all so much for that. I saw a couple of you hop into the stream. We're going to be queuing up next on deck. Let's see. I will be queuing next on deck Project Wings. It's an urban romantasy by author Angel Faye. So Project Wings, we'll be hopping into that in just a moment. But if you're just hopping into the stream, welcome. Are you enjoying the stream? Follow and subscribe. We're here every day with the WriteNow community, 500 plus consecutive writing streams and counting. If you're looking for critique streams like this, or you're needing help with your writing, or you want to do writing sprints, we do writing competitions and writing events. We do things all the time. We do workshops, seminars, and I try to do as much as possible to help you with the one thing that you're probably needing help with, which is finishing that book. So make sure to tap that follow or subscribe button and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, my friends. So let me hop into the comments. I saw a bunch of you hop in throughout. Goreforce, I know you were there as well, my friend. And I saw Eva. Welcome, welcome. Crazy. Good to have you in here. Let's see. How did you guys feel about that last story? Let's see. And what we got. Yeah, Mast, I could kind of see that. You're saying I can see what they're doing, trying to decide if it works or not. I was like, first I was on the fence with like the writing with the letter format, but I'm like, okay, you know what? I think it works. I think I can get behind it because that's like the style for the specific story. Mhm. Mm. You know, Goreforce, you put on something really interesting. You said, "I feel like a character introduction with this many words, we should know what at least one of the goals of the person writing the letter." And I think when I ask myself as a reader, how would I want to connect with the story? I think it's I want to connect with my protagonist. I want to connect with my protagonist and better understand what is going on with my core character. They mentioned their species, but I don't think we were clear on what the main character wanted. We weren't clear about their motivations, so it was hard for us to be able to connect with their main character. I think some type of preface or incorporating more of the character's dialogue, being like, yeah, but I feel like this happened. Oh, but I feel like that's BS because I don't believe in this or this. And like things like that. I think you could do a lot of commentary like that in that style. And that's how you do character development in a letter format. All right. And when writing, let's see what we got. Yeah, why do I care what is happening? I'm gonna assume the person receiving the letter would know the context of the letter. Yeah, I mean that, and then that's another question that made me ask as well, right? So if the who they were addressing the letter to, they're like, why doesn't the professor know what's going on if this is all this planetary conflict? Right. So then I think that there's backstory that we have to understand of okay, well, why doesn't the professor know any of this? Was the professor living under a rock this entire time? So definitely, definitely, definitely. We got some great, great stories. Great, great work. Thank you again, my friend, for submitting that. All right. Hey, welcomings. I saw you hopped into the stream. We got a little bit of a raid. Appreciate y'all. Hello, dropping my lurkers off to another stream. Much appreciated, Estancia. Very, very much appreciated. And you're actually in luck. You came in during our critique stream. So I'm doing live story readings for writers of the community. I'm doing a live reading and a live critique. If you guys want feedback on your stories, you should submit now. I do all types: fantasy, comedy, sci-fi, children's, memoir, drama. We do screenplays, we do poetry, we do predominantly novels and short stories, but I do all styles. So if you're wanting feedback on your story, I'll drop a link. I'll drop a link again for y'all. Story, let's see, story and critique show submission. There you go. And I just dropped that over there for you. Awesome. So that way all y'all can have access to that. All right. Okay, so like I said, we're gonna hop into the next story. Let's go into it. Let me pull up story number 2. So, like I said, we are hopping into Project Wings. Now, this one's an interesting one. I think that the format of this it all it almost feels like there's a little bit of a script-esque element to it, but we're gonna see what we got into it. So let me pull it up, and I'll throw up the. I'll explain what we got going on. One moment. All right. So this next one I got queued up on deck. All right. There's no Marta. That's a great question. There's no maximum length for the submission. You can submit as long as you want, but generally, what I recommend is about a chapter, give or take. I'm usually able to read through about 5 to 10 pages on average. I try to keep all of the readings about under like a 10-minute count, so that way I can try to get through as many stories as possible. Really, really a great question, by the way. Awesome. And Angs, I dropped that in there. Let me make sure that it went over to Discord, or not Discord, Twitch. Make sure. Yes, cool. The form dropped over to Twitch. So you can definitely submit now, my friends, if you're wanting feedback, and your story will get queued up. All right. And let's hop into it. All right. Okay. So I think. All right, so let me cue this up and let me pull it up. So, with this next story, we have Project Wings. This is an urban romantasy by author Angel Faye. And let me pull up the synopsis. All right, so this is a novel. This is they're currently revising their novel. Let's see. After surviving a strange accident, Evelyn feels that the man with black wings she saw that time is responsible for the accident. Evelyn promised herself to find the truth, but things became weird after the lightning that struck the bar, and she and her friends survived it. Project Wings, an urban romantasy by author Angel Faye. Mystic Falls. A small town full of secrets on every corner, but no one has ever discovered it. The legend says that there are mystical creatures living among humans, and no one has ever discovered them. Around the corner, there is a bar owned by a couple, but they are not ordinary ones. They have been hiding secrets for centuries from humans. Close to the bar, there is a building owned by the bar's couple, and inside there's an apartment where Evelyn has been living since. They helped her 15 years ago. What she's more appreciated about them was that her five best friends also live there. Each has her own apartment. She stretched her sleeping body and sighed. Her shift starts in 2 hours, but the time is only 6 a.m., which she can't understand her body for waking up so early. Evelyn got out of her bed after sitting in it for 10 minutes and went to take a shower. While the water is getting hot, she notices that her body wash and shampoo are about to be empty. I guess I should do some grocery shopping after work, Evelyn thought to herself while removing her clothes and getting inside her hot shower. Half an hour later, she wrapped her naked body with a fluffy towel and went to her bedroom in search of clothes to wear for the day, dry her long black wavy hair, and make breakfast. Though her only breakfast is coffee with cream, and when she gets to work, Lizzie prepares food for her, as she knows her habits of having coffee with cream alone. While the water boils, Evelyn leans on the counter with her phone and smiles at the chat group. Her girls are awake. Morning, girls. Morning. Good morning. Who has fingers this early in the morning? Stop complaining, Jane. Not all of us write books to stay up all night. No arguing early in the morning with Roxy and Jane, and good morning to you all, beautiful. Why did you wake up so early, Eve? Don't know, Ro. Plus, I had that weird dream again. I haven't had that dream in almost a decade. Again? You want us to drop by in the evening to talk about it? Sure. You know I love you girls, right? I don't know where I'll be without you. We know, Eve. I need to go to work. See you at the bar in the evening. Bye, Roxy. I better go too, or my boss will hang me. Love you all. Love you all, but I'm off to bed. See you in the evening at the bar. Bye, girls. See you at the bar. I'll bring some cookies from the pastry shop we love. Evelyn smiles at herself. She really doesn't know where she'll be without these five girls. When the water heats, she prepares her coffee. It felt like it was yesterday that she met them from someone from her class was bullying her for not having parents. Flashback. Hey, nerd, get your ass in here now, Madeline says. Evelyn obeys her and goes inside the classroom, knowing that she and her minions are going to take her money and beat her. For the past half an hour, her bullies were hitting her, tearing her uniform, but no one would dare to enter that classroom for fear of becoming their next target. She has been their target since she entered high school, and for being an orphan. That day felt different for her, as she heard voices of girls coming toward the classroom. At first, she thought it was a dream, but as the front door opened with noise, she understood it might be her bully's friends. What the fuck is going on here? Leave this girl alone, says the girl with silver hair. You have been bullying her for 3 years now, so get the fuck away, a redhead girl yells. Oh, it's only Roxy and Jane with their gang. Turn the fuck around and keep your noses away from our business, Madeline yells at the girls. Sorry to disappoint you, Mad, but we came to stop this shit. Evelyn looked at those 5 girls with teary eyes. She couldn't believe that someone came to save her. Evelyn, come here. We won't have that bitch to harm you anymore. With shaking legs, Evelyn got up from the floor and walked toward the girl, but Madeline grabbed her by the shoulder. She's not going anywhere with you. She's our punching bag. Jane laughed at Madeline's words and moved towards Evelyn. As she got close to Madeline, she swung her punch into Madeline's face and took Evelyn by her hand towards her and her friends. Ouch! She broke my nose. Get her, Madeline commanded on her friends while holding her bloody nose. Before they could do anything, the door opened, and the vice principal, Mr. Martin, entered the room. What is going on here? You two, take your friend to see the nurse, he tells the girls as Madeline and her friends left the room. Mr. Martin turned towards Evelyn and her new friends. What happened here? Sir, Madeline and her friends did this to Evelyn. They've been bullying her for the past 3 years. We've sent you so many letters about it, but you ignored them. So we took the initiative and stopped it before it ended badly. This is not your place to do it, young lady. You are going to apologize to Madeline and after school stay in detention. That is not fair. They're the ones who started this. Oh, I see. You don't want to do anything because her father is the mayor of the city, right? Jane says with anger. I don't have to explain things to any of you. This is my ultimate word, Mr. Martin says with anger. Fine, then I'm telling my parents to get me out of the school. I prefer to drop out than being with spoiled brats who don't respect anyone, Roxy declares. You really think I'm afraid of losing one student, Miss Vance? You should, because it will not only be me, but all my friends here, Roxy says. I'll find other 6 students to replace you. Now get the hell out of my school. You are all expelled, Mr. Martin declares. The girls helped Evelyn to her feet and started walking out of the classroom. Before closing the door, Rose turned towards Mr. Martin with a smirk. Not if I can't stop it. She closed the door behind her and followed her friends. As they arrived at the nurse's station, Evelyn felt like crying. Never since starting at Lake Fall High School had anyone defended her against Madeline and her friends. Can you help me sit down? I feel tired, she asked her new friends, hoping to become their friend. Sure, one of them says. When she sat on the plastic chair in front of the nurse's office, Evelyn sighed to herself. Her body was in pain, and she only wanted to lie down and sleep for 12 hours. End of flashback. Evelyn's phone rings, making her come back from her land of flashbacks. When she picks her phone, a smile reached her face. Morning, Odo. How are you? Good morning, Eve. Are you coming to work? He asks her. I am. My coffee is ready in my go cup. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Evelyn says while pouring her coffee into her go cup. We'll be waiting for you. And Lizzie is preparing your breakfast, Odo announces to her through the phone. They both say goodbyes and hung up. Evelyn goes to find her cream, but to her surprise, there was no cream in her fridge. I guess I'll have to do this at work, she thought to herself. After concealing her go cup with her coffee, Evelyn puts her shoes on, took her bag and keys. Locking her door, she turned and left toward her work. 20 minutes later, Evelyn arrives at her workplace. Odo, Lizzie, I'm here. We are in the kitchen. Come before your breakfast will get cold, Odo announces from the kitchen. Evelyn walks there with her bag and a smile on her face. Upon entering the kitchen, she goes to Odo and then to Lizzie to give each a hug. Good morning to my favorite people. How are you? Morning, sweetie. Your cream is on the table and so is the breakfast, Lizzie says with a smile. You two enjoy breakfast, and I'll start preparing the opening. Eve, join me after you finish eating, Odo says to Evelyn. He kissed his wife and left the kitchen. After half an hour, Evelyn left the kitchen and starts helping Odo in preparing the opening of the bar. A few moments later, Evelyn turns to Odo. I'm opening the front door. Are you ready? Sure do. Does your friends are going to drop by in the evening? Odo asks while drawing the last glass. They do. Hope you don't mind it, Evelyn says as she opens the front door, flips the sign to open, and walks back inside. You know they are always welcome here. I'll tell Lizzie to prepare snacks for them. Odo puts the glass in its place and prepares the bar with beverages. A minute later, the customers come inside, and Evelyn goes to take their orders. While she's doing it, a man sits at the bar. Morning. Your Highness, he whispers. Odo's eyes flicks towards the man, revealing ember eyes. Instead of light blue eyes, dragon's eyes appear there. What are you doing there? What are you doing here, Ambrin? Who is at the palace monitoring my parents? He asked with authority in his voice. Lizzie, who is in the kitchen getting ready to prepare for the first order, senses her husband's distress and leaves the kitchen. Odo, what is going... Ambrin? Why are you here? She asked the man who was sitting at the bar. My queen, I am so sorry to drop by so sudden, but I had to. I have a trusty person monitoring your parents, Ambrin says. What is it, Ambrin? Odo asks as he senses the man's distress. My king, your parents are trying to make everyone on Solmer to abandon you and the queen. Ambrin delivers his message to Odo. Odo clenches the glass so hard that it shatters. How? Dare! They do this under my nose! Lizzie, I need you to stay here at this bar. I'll go with Ambrin back to Ilarion to settle scores with my family. I won't let them throw me from my house. Odo, calm down. You can't do this now. We need proof against them to remove them. Let my family help you. You know they love and respect you as I am, Lizzie says softly to her husband. The queen is right, your highness. If in a month we won't find anything, then you can deal with them your way. You are our ruler, my king. It has been like that for centuries. Your family is envious that your late grandfather has left you the crown and not them, Ambrin says. Odo sighs slowly, releasing a small smoke from his nose. Lizzie notices it and looks around the bar to see if someone notices it. Thankfully, most of their customers are mystical creatures and are used to it. Her only concern are the humans inside the bar and Evelyn. It's too early for her to find out the truth about their world. All right. And we are going to end reading there. All right. So end the reading there. And very awesome. So first off, really, really great work. I think whenever we go on embarking on a story, right, it takes up so much time, space, and energy. First off, to write the story and then to submit it in front of a live audience. So I just want to say thank you so much for submitting that story. There was definitely a lot of elements that I really enjoyed in it. And let's see, I believe in this draft. Let's see. So they're currently in revisions for this draft. So it sounds like they know that there's still some work, some edits that they're going to do in it. So I'm not going to focus as much on the grammatical side of things. I'm going to focus more on the story side of it. When I think about the things that worked out really, really well for me, I was definitely, let's see, I would say that I was very intrigued by a couple of the main characters. I thought there were some really cool characters in there, and I really wanted to know what I wanted to know more about them. And then I started getting more setups for the world building. I'm like, oh, they're in this like crazy, like cool kingdom. I actually totally thought they were in the real world. I really thought that it took place in the real world because of the use of cell phones and technology. And I think that actually the biggest opportunity for this piece, and I think it's a little bit in the piece, and my guess is it could be a good writing opportunity for you, is actually in setups. And I think that is the one thing that your story is really missing that could really make your story sing much, much more. And when I say setups, what do I mean? So you introduced a lot of ideas. You introduced some really cool elements, right? There's some cool characters. There's really cool worlds. There's a really cool plot line. And by the way, I'm very intrigued by the plot already. But with the setups, I feel like that I didn't get like the introductory, it could be whether it's a sentence, it could be a paragraph for some of the characters and the settings. So I wasn't always clear on some of the settings on like, where am I? And then in addition, so like I knew they were at her house and then at her bar, right? And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more like when we're at the bar. You mentioned mystical creatures. I'm like, oh, what the heck? I want to know which mystical creatures are there. Is there like an elf sitting in that corner and like an ogre in that corner? Is there like a dragon sitting over there? So I want to better understand your world. So it's like when she first walks into the bar, the first thing that we want to do anytime we set up a scene or set up a new character, we need some type of description. Now, some writers like to go much more and do a bigger description. Other writers like to do a smaller description. It's totally whatever works for you, but we need some type of setup for each character each time we get a new character and each time we get a new scene. So that way we can just have type of like a visualization for what's going on, and then it helps us as readers paint the rest of the picture. So I think for setups, that's probably going to be like one of my biggest opportunities for it. Simply because I saw that as a consistent thing. Now let's hop into the story itself. All right. So Legend said, by the way, I really loved your opening. I really loved your opening, by the way. I thought this was a really cool little opening. I was such a fan of that. Mystic Falls. I was like, by the way, I love the name. Nice naming structure. The legend says there are mystical creatures living among humans and no one has ever discovered them. And I think in this opening setup, I don't think we actually need a description of mystical creatures. I think in this opening is fine because it's not until we get to the locations that we need a better idea. Let's see. And then around the corner, there's a bar owned by a couple. They've been hiding secrets for centuries from humans. And you did set us up with this. So you did set us up with the bar owners about them having secrets, which was interesting. But what's fascinating is you've introduced so much other information to me. I almost forgot as the reader. Granted, it could have been because this is a live reading, so that totally could be on me. But this was just something to keep in mind when we come back to them after the flashback. Okay. And by the way, as a side note, I believe that with time, you would put 6 o'clock, but the time is only 6 a.m. No, actually, you know what? Actually, I'd have to double check that. You might actually, because it's a time, writing time and novels. Yeah, because so like usually with numbers you would spell out the number, but I think that you would still go like this. I think you would go 6 a.m. I was checking for the AM, so I think you go like this is the correct way to do a time. I was like, that's what I thought, but I had to double check because usually you don't do numbers unless it's like bigger numbers in a story. Random like technical rule. Let's see. And yeah, angst is absolutely right. Yeah, the rule is generally to spell out numbers. I wasn't sure with the AM PM. I had to double check with AM PM, but I'm like, it still applies. Absolutely. Let's see. And then I guess I should do some grocery shopping after work. So this is actually something I see, Angel, and I actually see this with a lot of writers. A lot of writers do this. And I want to help you be a better writer. So I want to do a really quick call out. So you said, I guess I should do some grocery shopping after work. Evelyn thought to herself while removing her clothes and getting inside her hot shower. So everything that we're reading is in the character's head. We already know that we're in character in Evelyn's head, right? So we don't actually need the setup that this is in her head because we know that it's in her head. What I would actually, I think what could do better if you really want this to be focused, you could actually do this a couple other ways. I would actually go here. You could either make it its own paragraph if you really want it to emphasize that, or you could italicize it is another thing that writers will do. Evelyn, because then this would be stronger. Evelyn, and we already know, you've already set up Evelyn in this. Yeah, you haven't used Evelyn yet. So Evelyn removed her clothes. Evelyn removed her clothes and got inside her hot shower. Right, so that actually makes it a little stronger because now we just gotten rid of a little extra text. So I think it's just something to keep in mind. Random editor in me comes out. All right, and then let's see, half an hour later. All right, and you know what was actually really interesting? The way that you did this text, the text group, I'm not actually opposed to it. I actually thought I really enjoyed the text message group. At first, I'm like, oh no, texting, because sometimes texting can be a little challenging, but it really depends on formatting and how you go about it. But I think I liked the intention to go with texting, and I think it worked. I think there's a couple moments you got to just cut down some wordiness, but I think the texting chain does work, and it sets us up with each of her friends. So we have, let's see, so we have our main girl, we have Evelyn, Rose, Annabelle, Alice, Jane, Roxy. Right, so there's 6 of them, right? Evelyn, Roxy, Jane, Alice, Annabelle, Rose. Yeah, okay, so we have 6 girls. Okay. So we have 6 girls in this conversation. And I think it's a little different since the girls aren't in the scene. Normally you would need to like set up each of the girls, but since they're not in the scene, it's a text message thread. I don't think it's absolutely necessary that you set each of them up for the text chain, but I think when you introduce a lot of names like that, the reader's like, okay, well, I don't know who's who. And that might not be an issue for this text chain. I think the point of it is getting across that they're all going to meet at the bar later, and her mentioning the dream. But I think you really want to play into each of their personalities being as different as possible, right? You really want to, because there's 6 of them, right? So that's 6 different personalities that we want to have a better understanding of, like, all right, who is this character? And then who is this character? And it's just something to think about. All right. And then so this is interesting, right? So when we hop into a flashback here. Now I'm asking myself, I'm like, okay, so we hop into a flashback. Let's see. It felt like yesterday that she met them when someone from her class was bullying her for not having. All right, so then we're doing a flashback sequence. The question I would ask myself, right, as a reader is like, okay, so why? So Evelyn is in the moment, right? And if we're in Evelyn's head, how come Evelyn is now standing there thinking about this entire moment, right? Just thinking about it because she was just texting all of them and she had this weird dream. I might give Evelyn a little stronger motive for why she's now thinking of this flashback, right? She goes and she picks up a picture, or she goes to her journal and she starts reading her journal from, oh yeah, this is what happened. Now, in the flashback itself, the challenge is that we have a lot of characters that we don't know who the characters are, right? So, hey, nerd, get your ass in here, Madeline says. I don't know who Madeline is the problem. So, you can start off with the dialogue. This is fine, but we need some type of description, right? Uh, get your ass in here now, nerd. In here now. Because we go back to Evelyn, right? Why she's being bullied, and that all makes sense. But I need to know, even if it's a sentence, I need something that tells me who Madeline is. All right. And then we got girl with silver hair. And then we got redhead girl. All right. And these are just random. These are like, my guess is these are like Madeline's random groupies. Says the girl with silver hair, one of Madeline's groupies. You've been bullying her for 3 years now, so get the fuck away. A redhead girl says, another girl from the classroom, right? So then we need just a little bit more setup. Where's the redhead? She's just like a random chick in the classroom. Um, and then we have Jane as well. But Jane hasn't been set up, so I'm just not sure who. Oh, it's only Roxy and Jane with their gang. Turn the fuck around. So we have Evelyn, Roxy, and Jane. I'm just not sure who Roxy and Jane is, right? And the only reason why you mention them in the dialogue, but I need a setup for them. So you say, oh, it's only Roxy and Jane with their gang. Turn the fuck around, keep your nose away from our business. Madeline yells. Sorry to disappoint you, Mad. Evelyn looked at those girls. She couldn't believe that. Evelyn, come here. Sorry to disappoint you, Mad, but we can't stop this shit. Evelyn looked at this 5. So is this Evelyn speaking? She couldn't believe that someone came to save her. Evelyn, come here. But I thought this was Evelyn speaking. So I think we just have to, just a little bit of clarity on who's speaking could help as well. But like what you've chosen with the scene, I think the scene actually does work. And I think it adds some really great character development and some great context for our main character. But I think we just need a little bit more setup and understanding so that way I can stay cemented as a reader. And then Mr. Martin, like, the evil principal. All right, so Mr. Martin is sending them to detention, right, for getting in a fight. That makes sense. My only question with this, right, is with schools, I don't think there's systems where a principal can just tell somebody that they're suspended on the spot unless it's like an immediate like threat, right? So only because he says detention originally, and then the reason he says they're expelled is because they talk back to him. I'm not sure if that's actually a thing or not. It might be different, maybe if it's like a private school, but I'm not sure. So this is just a developmental thing I would just think about. That he goes from detention, which the detention bit makes sense, but then him being expelled because they're talking back to him. I would think that his next step would then be, all right, well, I'm going to be having a talk with your parents, and we're going to be talking about expulsion, right? Because usually the parents have to be involved, but I'm not too familiar on what the framework of the school system is. So that's just something to keep in mind from a developmental standpoint. Awesome. And then we get to the end of the flashback, and then we go to the bar. Well, we're getting to the setup to the bar. So this is interesting. My coffee's ready to go. And I mean, I thought this was like a cute little open with Mr. Odo. We don't know. We know that Lizzie's going to the bar, but I didn't know that those were like the two with the secret. So the secret is that they're a king and queen, which I love that. That's actually a great secret. So when she gets to work, so I think what we need here is we need a setup for the bar, right? So this is the bar that was mentioned in the first page. We need a setup of like, okay, so she gets to work. And you could do it as simply as she gets to work and she flings the door open, smelling the musty same old sten of her old her her joy and love. Random customers sat at the counters. A few of them looked out of place today. One of them, she thought she smelled something magical or some like you could do so much subtextual stuff about it. If is everyone human looking and they have like um so everyone are mystical creatures, but they look like humans, which is kind of what I'm thinking based off that first page. So I think I would just set up like, what does it feel like? What does it look like? Right? You did it in the first page, which is awesome, but I think we need a little reminder. Now, if you're like, hey, I don't want the reader to remember that, I want to kind of keep it a surprise, then you could still frame it. Be like, all right, she walked into her workplace, flung her thing on the counter. There were customers sitting in the stools. She did not want to talk with people. She was ready for breakfast. There's still a way you could get around that if you don't want the reader to know that it's the magical bar. So I think that would be something that I'd keep in mind. All right. And I think that it. Oh, and then this last thing was the dragon's eyes appear there. Just a little bit more description. Odo's eyes flicks towards the man, revealing ember eyes instead of light blue eyes. Dragon's eyes appear there. That's interesting, but there's so many different types of dragons. I love dragons. Everyone knows I love dragons. If you have a problem, put a dragon on it. But. So if there is like a reference like that, the question I asked is like, okay, what type of dragon is it in your world? So awesome. And that is all that I got for you. Awesome. All right. And Angel, thank you so much for submitting. What a fun little read. Woo, man. And I could tell that the community was really enjoying it as well. I could tell you definitely got some excellent feedback. Let's see what we got. I know I saw some really great feedback. Let's see. Yeah, so I would say, Angel, definitely make sure that you check out the comments as well. There's some really great structural comments. The community has given you some really great line edits and a lot of ways to improve sentence style and structure. Take it and remember that you're the author and that some things work for you and some things won't. So I think that's actually really awesome that you got some excellent feedback in here. Whenever I put my story, I mean, you guys know me. I write my story, The Last Scarecrow, on the streams every day nearly. I want people to always give me feedback. I'm like, do you hate it? Tell me what you hate. Tell me what you want, what you really want. All right. And let's see. Yeah. So let's see. And then we got some very good call outs. By the way, I saw a couple more People hop into the stream. Heather Adams, great to have you in here, my friend. Welcome, welcome. Killer Gamer, great seeing you in here, by the way. You hopped right in the middle of a story as I was doing a live reading. And by the way, if you're just hopping into the stream, welcome. This is the story and critique stream where I read stories live for writers and members in the community. If you want feedback on your story, submit now. It will get queued up either for today's stream if there's enough time, or it gets queued up for another story and critique show. We have done, this is the 46th episode of the show. I've read over 200 stories live. They're all cold readings, and my goal is to just help writers improve their stories, right? So that way we can all get closer to getting those books published. So if you're wanting to get your story, if you're wanting to submit now. I will drop it down in the chat. Story and critique show submission. There we go. I just dropped that in the chat for y'all. So very, very cool. And I could tell definitely awesome. All right. So thank you so much for that. Okay. Okay, so thank you so much for that, my friends. So I'm really, really happy that we were able to get through that. We're going to hop into the next story. And let's see, the next story I have queued up on deck is, let's see, The Rise of Gabriel. So we're actually getting a really interesting resubmission by Calvin. So Calvin, we're getting a resubmission for The Rise of Gabriel, which is actually going to be, I think we're hopping into the revised prologue, which is going to be super cool. So Calvin, we're going to be hopping into your story in just a moment. So very, very cool. All right, and let's see what we got now. All right, so with The Rise of Gabriel, let's see. Let me pull it up here, and without further ado, we're going to hop into that. All right, and then for those of you who haven't listened in before, let's see. Let's do this. All right, perfect. All right. Thank you so much for that. All right. All right. And all right. So thank you so much for that. So with The Rise of Gabriel, all right. So let me pull up. I'm just finding Calvin's thing here. So The Rise of Gabriel is a sci-fi. Here we go. All right. So The Rise of Gabriel is a fantasy by author Calvin Hammond. Now, for those of you who've been around, we've done a number of versions of Rise of Gabriel in some of the previous ones. Let's see. So it is. Whoops, don't have the subtext here, but it's basically it's a setup for a fantasy story, and we're going to hop into it. All right. Okay. All right, beautiful. So I have The Rise of Gabriel here, and we're going to see what we can pull out and see if we can help out Calvin. So this was another prologue that we did previously in a previous story and critique show. So this was something that we did in a previous story and critique stream, and it was really, really good. We've done a couple excerpts of it. I want to say we've done the prologue, and I think one or two. I think we've done 2 chapters. But essentially, we're getting the setup in this fantasy, the pre-fantasy world before everything blows up. So we're going to kind of help Calvin out with this revision and see if we're able to offer any recommendation or advice to help him out. And let me just make sure. I'm sure some of you submitted more. All right. Awesome. And I know I saw a couple more submissions come in. So once again, everyone, thank you for adding for further submissions. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Much appreciated. Interesting. Blast, you said you got a something went wrong error when you tried to submit. Might be on my end since the internet is being weird. Interesting. Interesting. Let me just, I will submit something on my, let me just check that out real fast. Blast, let me check that out real fast. Thank you for sharing that before I hop into Calvin's story. Make sure that it's working on my end. Yeah, so I just tested out on my end, Blast. So I think it might have just been you because I just resubmitted on my end just to test it out and it seems to work fine. So what I would recommend is just maybe refresh it and then see if it lets you submit. Yeah, because it's like definitely that would be problematic if people can't submit their stories. All right, thank you so much, my friends, and we are going to hop into it. So. The Rise of Gabriel. Under the New York City lights, Adam waited patiently for his wife, Eve, to meet him. A crisp, cold December wind blew through him, and he did his best to pull his winter coat tighter around his large frame. He certainly hated this time of the year and couldn't stand being this far north. Sadly, though, due to circumstances beyond their control, he always needed certain things during this time of the year, and he had long ago learned to accept that. He looked down the street at a giant electronic billboard with the news broadcast on it. Will Y2K shut down the world in 8 days? That's the question on everyone's mind as we roll into the year 2000. In other news, Adam laughed out loud. He didn't understand everyone's panic. The world was more than prepared, so of course everything would be fine. He'd seen to that. He debated on calling his wife when he felt a set of arms wrap around him, and he was overcome with the smell of peppermint. He smiled. His wife had found him after all. He turned in her arms and embraced her. Her blue hair was what stood out to most people, but to him, it was her angelic face that he enjoyed seeing every morning. Still, he frowned at the thought of no matter how much he loved her, the one time he strayed still haunted him. What's wrong, Adam? Nothing, Eve, he said as he leaned in and kissed her on the top of her head. She snuggled closer to his body, and the two took off down the bustling streets of New York City. On a normal day, they would walk to a nearby subway station and take it to the stop near their apartment. Today, however, they decided that despite the coolness of the night, they would have an adventure and walk the dozen or so blocks home. Throughout their walk, they looked at the sights. They pointed at the various mom and pop shops. Some had opened recently. Others they remembered when the current owner's grandparents had first opened them many years ago. Another blast of cold wind blew over them, chilling their bodies. Adam laughed as Eve shrieked and moved her body closer to his as she tried to suck the warmth from him. You know, at times like this, I swear God made you a succubus of a woman. Eve looked at him with a glare that almost made him wither. Well, excuse me for not asking God to have a built-in heater. Adam laughed. Oh, well, excuse me for not asking God to have a built-in heater. Adam laughed loudly as he fondly rubbed her shoulder and pulled her in as tightly as he could. They had rounded a corner when a person in a red parka coat forced their way between their shoulders and pushed them apart. Adam turned, scowling at the person, but they were already on their way. A quick flash of jasmine and something else passed his nose when she got between them. He knew the smell, but couldn't place where or what else it was he smelled that was so familiar. His eyes chased them, but they were already gone. Is something wrong, my love? You usually don't get so flustered. Adam turned to see Eve's worried face. He flashed her a brilliant smile and pulled her back in close. The smell of fresh Cinnabons entered his nose. Adam looked down and saw that she had also smelled one of her favorite snacks. He saw the adoration in her eyes and her lip tremble as she gave him the puppy eye look. He resigned himself to their fate as he led the way across the street to the bakery. Cheer up, my love. In a few days, we'll be opening presents and celebrating the heavenly birthday of her cousin. And after that, we'll be off to Europe to celebrate the new millennium. Adam smiled. I know, dear. Still, this is going to be our 8th millennium, and I'm just feeling... The words Adam was going to say was lost as a car ran a stoplight and barreled straight at the two. Adam felt himself being pushed away from the out-of-control car. He turned to look at Eve, who only gave him a wide smile as the car slammed into her. Adam lost his balance and hit his head hard against the side of a truck. Blood trickled down the side of his face. The world spun and he hit the ground hard. Adam slipped further into darkness as his eyelids were too heavy to stay open, no matter how hard he tried. He craned his neck enough to see his wife's broken body as people ran toward them. He reached his hand out towards her to try and get to her, but in the end, all he could do was finally slip completely into darkness. Well, for the first time in centuries, he sent a prayer to his father. Please, save her. In a hospital gown on, with his head wrapped in a bandage, Adam looked out at the city. He looked at his reflection in the window. The face showed heart-wrenching grief. The nurses who came in and checked his vitals and see how he was doing didn't say much. He knew nothing they said would be helpful. After all, unless you've experienced it yourself, who can you possibly say to someone who just lost their wife so suddenly? And on a Christmas day of all days. Adam continued to stare out the window when he heard the faint clicking noise of a woman's heels on the tile floor. He knew it wasn't a nurse since they didn't wear heels. It was probably someone from hospital management offering their condolences. Normally, there would be a rush to get him out since his injuries were not that serious. However, he simply transferred a large amount of money to the hospital and told them he wanted to be left alone to contemplate. That was 3 days ago. The clicking of the heels was getting closer to him. Adam frowned angrily and swore to himself that if it was another hospital manager offering sympathies, he would finally lose what little control he had left. Then he inhaled the scent of jasmine and myrrh, along with the unlying smell of rot. A unique combination he hadn't smelled in a very long time. Very rare, in fact. So rare, he knew only one person who possessed it. Hello, Adam. It's good to see you again after so many years. Adam's entire body stiffened, like a piece of rebar. He knew that voice, despite not having heard it in 7 millennia. He would never forget her seductive, siren-like voice. After all, forgetting his fall, they'd spent over 100 years together. He turned to face the woman. She was a bit shorter than him, but her body was slender, and her black business suit did little to hide her curves that any would sell their soul to possess. Her long red hair flowed freely down her back, giving her a wild look. Adam eyed the woman carefully. Despite being the bigger and stronger of the two, he knew firsthand just how cunning and dangerous she could be. Hello, Lilith. End reading. Awesome. Wow. So once again, I'm actually really happy with how that section turned out. I feel like that was a much stronger section than what we did in the last time around. So I was actually really happy about that. Really great work, Calvin. And once again, we get submissions from writers all the time. Sometimes some writers will submit like different parts of their story. Sometimes writers will take the feedback we give them and then come back with a later submission. So I remember we did a much earlier revision of that. I want to say it must have been maybe 10 critique streams ago. So I think that might have been in the 30s. And I remember in the earlier revision, there was a lot more setup with Adam and with who Adam was as a character, with the world, with Y2K and everything that was happening before we got to them walking back and forth and the cutesy moment. So how do I feel about that? I remember that it was feeling like it was too much originally. Now I'm like, okay, do I feel good about the setup for the characters? I'm almost wondering if there could have been a little bit more of a setup now in this draft, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of going back and forth on it. I'm like, we set up really with Adam, but because it's a prologue, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter that much. It's funny because I like Adam's character. I want to know what's happening with Adam's character, but this is the prologue. So really, this isn't even the story yet. This is setting us up before the story, which is really interesting. So I think that's really, really fascinating. Yeah, it's interesting. So let me hop into the critique. I'm actually really curious to hear, what did you think? Were there moments that really stood out to you? And if you remember a previous one, drop a comment. I'd love to hear from you. What stood out? Was there anything that could be improved? So on and so forth. So when I look here, let's see. So we're starting in clearly the setup. We're at New York City, Y2K. I think that's very, very clear, right? Where Adam is waiting for Eve, his wife. All right. So beyond, he always needs certain things. And I think this is right. I think this is setting up a really interesting theme, right? We all know what, for anyone who was alive, and here I'm like, no, of course, but of course during Y2K, right? Like there was that thing that happened where people were like, okay, is the world going to shut down? Yes or no? Maybe it will shut down, maybe it won't shut down because we're going into the new millennium. So that was a whole thing. And I love how they set it up like this. I think this sets up a really good thing. It also points the reader in a different direction. What's the word? It's also misdirecting the reader. It is misdirecting the reader, which I think is a very smart call. It's making us think that something's going to happen with Y2K, but we're not anticipating the car crash. All right. And then we get the cutesy moment with Adam and Eve. I love it. Their cutesy moment is great. They point out the various pops and their best cold wind. All right. So we get their cutesy conversation, which is great. I think the character development worked out really well. World building, well done. Dialogue, overall dialogue is good. There's a few opportunities for it to be cleaned up, but with this draft, this is in a great spot for where this draft is at. Let's see. And then we get the woman who passed him by, who is probably Lilith. A quick flash of Jasmine and something else. And what's interesting is Adam has clearly been alive for hundreds of years, right? But we don't know that. So it creates a really interesting dynamic. And I think this was really nicely done. Adam laughed fondly as they rubbed her shoulder and pulled her in together. Something that I would recommend, and this is from a technical perspective, because you want to I think you want to elevate this moment as much as possible. As he fondly rubbed shoulder, I would actually start the paragraph with them running into the person. I would go rounding a corner. So I would go like this, rounding a corner. A person. Actually, I wouldn't even do that. I would start with the person, tightly as could. A person in a red parka, forced their way between them. Let's see. Adam laughed loudly as he fondly rubbed her shoulder and pulled her in as tightly as he could. A person in a red parka forced their way between their shoulders. Actually, I might even start that as a new paragraph. Let me see how that looks. A person in a red parka coat forced their way between their shoulders and pushed them apart as they rounded a corner. I think I would go that because I want this to be the focus of this subject. And that's just from more of a technical standpoint, something that I would recommend. Yeah. But this was definitely an absolutely great moment. Then they get in the car crash. I might recommend right before the car crash happens. I might actually suggest a little bit more dialogue in the car crash, because obviously you've misdirected with the person in the parka, and you want the reader to forget about the person in the parka for just a moment and think, you want them not forget, but you want them to think, oh, okay, something with this person in the red parka. So I would actually add another cutesy dialogue moment here before the car crash. So that way it adds a little bit more tension, or it diffuses the tension, so the reader's not expecting it. Because you do action here, and the action does work fine. But I think I would add another like cute dialogue moment of like, is something wrong, my love? You usually don't get so flustered. And I almost want him to say something really cute, right? So it reinforces this like cute couple love that lets people resonate. I would like minimize this paragraph, and then we'll go here. Then you have this action, and then he's starting this as the car crash happens. Now, here, you don't actually need to say the words Adam was going to say are lost, because we just want the action to happen, right? By putting it here, right, we know the action. We know the words are lost. So, Adam Smart, I know, dear. Still, this is going to be our 8th millennium, and I'm just feeling a car. I would rather go up ahead. And I'm just feeling a car honked as it ran a stoplight. I'm just feeling a car honked as it barreled through the street. I'm asking myself if it matters if the car ran the stoplight or not. And I think if they had seen that the car was running the stoplight, oh, that's right, because she pushed him out of the way. So there was time. She pushed him. The words Adam was going to say was lost, and I'm just feeling a car honked as it ran a stoplight, barreling straight at them. Adam felt himself pushed. Yeah, and I think that would just make the opening of this a little stronger. A car honked as it ran a stoplight and barreled straight at them. Right. So I think that's just something that I would do, because I just want to make this action as prevalent as possible, right? Adam felt he felt himself pushed out of the way. Turning to look at Evelyn with a wide smile as the car slammed into her. Oh, such a moment. Such a moment. Oh, so beautiful. So tragic. So hauntingly tragic. Yeah, God. But really, really great setup. I think you tackled this scene very, very well. And then, of course, slipping into darkness in the hospital. This is all good. I think that's a nice transition. And then he's basically lifeless in the hospital, lost the love of his life. But then what's interesting is now we're getting a little bit more sad. We're like, oh, wait, he was not the love of his life. He has been around for some time. And this is Adam's entire body stiffened like a piece of rebar. He knew that voice, despite not having heard it in 7 millennia. 7 millennia. You're like, okay, this is the first moment where we get like, okay, so he is like, and not necessarily, he might be immortal, he might not, we don't really know enough yet, but clearly he can live for a very long time. And I think this is a really nice twist. Really, really, very, he knew only one person. Very, very nice twist. After following his fall, they'd spent over 100 years together. Yep. And now we get a little bit of the background and the end. The only thing that I want to know was Lilith, was she the one in the red parka? Was she the one in the red parka? If yes, I would make that clear right here. If not, or you want to keep it subjective, or you want to keep it mysterious, it doesn't matter. If Lilith was the one who bumped into them earlier, you said she was in a red parka, I would almost say that I would actually almost recommend that because red is like such a good color visually, especially for that type of character, I would say it should be like a red suit, because you describe her as being in a black suit, and her black business suit did little to hide her curves, or have her in a black business suit underneath her red parka. if that's the case, because I want it to be clear to the reader that that was the same person. If it was, we don't actually know that for sure, but just something to keep in mind. Awesome. And I think that is everything that comes to mind. So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind. And I think that is, yeah, that's all that I got for you, my friend. Thank you so much for submitting it. Ooh, man. What did you think of that submission? Did you like it? What really stood out to you? I could tell you guys dropped some good comments. But yeah, Calvin, once again, really great work on the revision. Really great work. I see you took a lot of the feedback, and I think there's still a couple like minor opportunities, but I think developmentally overall, it's a very good piece. It's in a really good place. I think my only problem is because I know where the story's going over the next couple chapters now. I like those characters, and now I want to know more about those characters. And I mean, I don't know, you're gonna have to get reader feedback and see how people feel, but because you're leaving it off on such a twist, but that's the prologue, so that's not even the start of the story. Then we're hopping into chapter 1. I'm kind of invested in Adam now. I'm like, dang, you made me care about Adam, but that's not even part of the story. My guess is based on what I know. It probably comes back. Will probably come back at a later point, but it's interesting. And I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong way around it. You're still wrestling with using this as a prologue. You're kind of going back and forth. So yeah, I think Calvin, what I would do is for now, keep it as a prologue. Keep it as a prologue for now. Keep working on the story, and then see how it feels and get feedback once you have like the full story finished. Um, for me, I would ask myself if they are not part of the core prologue, if they're not part of the, since I mean they're not part of the core story, because it's really doing more world setup. I'd kind of have to know more, so I'd have to do more. Awesome. Really great work, my friend. And by the way, welcome. If you're just hopping into the stream, welcome. This is the Story and Critique stream where I'm reading stories live stories and live critiques from writers in the community. So if you're wanting feedback, go submit now. The submission form is linked down in the YouTube description down below. Awesome. And I know, let's see. And then Aings, I saw that you had a really great question earlier. I think you asked it right after I had started. I'll hop back. I'll address it in just a second. Mass, you know what? I don't think if they're supernatural being, I don't think the wife was supernatural. I think the wife was a human. I think Adam is supernatural. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive that Adam is a supernatural being and the wife was a normal human. I believe. And my guess is that he is a supernatural being. The wife doesn't know, and that they were both supernatural. Oh, okay. Yeah, then I guess that's a great question, right? So then how did the wife die if she's a supernatural being? And if he does know she's a supernatural being, then wouldn't he probably wouldn't think that she would be dead. So I think the only way to do that is you would have to make the attack supernatural. It would have to be some type of supernatural instant for but I mean also we don't know anything about the characters, like common mundane things can kill supernatural beings, guys. Common mundane things can kill supernatural beings. But I think we just need a little bit of a better understanding of how a car crash can kill somebody who's been around for so long. Right. And that's a really good point, right? Just because you can live forever doesn't mean that you're invincible to death. Yeah. You guys bring up some really good points. Yeah. So you guys definitely brought up some really good points. Okay, but let me touch upon, let's see, let me find it. Where did it go? So Aang, so you had a really good call. You asked a little while ago. You said your editing has an approximate retail value of 3 cents per word. So this is actually a really good call out. I actually offer multiple writing services. And I'll throw it up here real quick. I offer alpha reading, book editing, and I offer the different styles of book editing, whether that's line editing, developmental editing, copy editing, or proofreading. And then I've also recently launched audiobook narration services. So if you're looking for one of those things and you're like, hey, you know what, I'm needing help with my book, or I'm needing feedback, or I'm wanting to see, or I'm wanting to get help with it, I will throw this up real quick. So you said your editing has an approximate retail value of 3 cents per word. I don't think that's actually correct. And I'd be really curious to see how you pulled that. My editing, here's my pricing. So pricing that I have, and this is just for each of the types of edits. I generally charge the edit at 0.03 cents per word. It ranges between 0.01 to 0.03 cents. And this is actually all based on industry pricing. This is all based on market value pricing. Usually, I would say that my pricing is probably about 10 to 15% below what normal industry pricing would cost if you went to like a traditional publishing house or to like a traditional editor. What I also do that's different is I also offer huge discounts because I recognize editing costs a lot of money. Guys, like we know it, editing does cost. And then you also have to have money on so then that also says that then there would be what's that? Then that would be I lost my train of thought. As I'm like blanking here. So then that means that there would be because editing is really, really pricey, and because you obviously have to spend money on other factors like the book cover, on marketing stuff, and getting your book out there. I offer huge discounts for first-time clients, doing multiple batch edits together, for our YouTube channel members, and then for referrals. There's a couple other miscellaneous ones I've done as well, but I offer really big discounts. The discounts generally range anywhere between 25 to 50%. And I do that intentionally because I want writers to recognize, right, like this is what the industry value is, but I want to be affordable so that way I can help you with getting your stuff. I can absolutely help you with getting your stuff edited and revised because I know it costs a lot of money. I do. So definitely a really, really good call out. And then if anybody is wanting like, if you're wanting to set up, like we could set up like a free consult. If you're wanting to know kind of like more about like what my process is, if you're wanting to be like, hey, you know what, I'm interested. I know I need alpha reading. All right. Maybe you just want like an alpha reading and you just need feedback. We could do a free consultation for you. And all you have to do is you just fill out this form right here. That shows you a little bit about the process, and then we could set up like a free consult and we can kind of talk through what it is that your story needs specifically. So thank you for asking that, Angst. I just wanted to call that out. Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, wow. I was like, I totally missed that. I was like, I totally missed it. You're like, that's right. I did the dollar sign, so it was clear as dollars and not cents. Oh, man. Angst, thank you so much for that call. I'll fix it. You're like, oh, okay, great. I was like, I totally didn't even like comprehend that until like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's a cent sign, not the dollar sign. Faye. Brain fart. Angs, I appreciate you. Thank you for that call out. Yeah, so that just has to be changed to the cent sign, not the dollar sign. I was like, oy vey. I was like, wow, I was totally like looking at the wrong thing too. I was looking at it, but I was like thinking in such a different direction. Let's see. So let's go. Yeah. All right, and give me just a moment. Let's see. I'm gonna fix that. 94780. So, by the way, so while I'm doing that quick adjustment, how are you doing? Are you enjoying the story so far? What do you think of the stories? Do you like listening and sitting in on the different stories and kind of hearing it? Do you kind of like seeing like the feedback? I really encourage you, whether you're new to the community or whether you've been a part for a while, you should submit your story for feedback, because the goal is like, we want to help everybody improve. We really do. And if you're like, hey, you know what, maybe your story is not in the right spot, maybe you just like, you don't want to share it live, you can also hop into our Discord as well. Our Discord's super active, and there's actually a space in the Discord for feedback where you can submit sections and writers will exchange help with each other in the Discord. I would say it's pretty active. So let's see. And then pages. All right. And let's see. There you go. All right. Woo, I'll save. All fixed. I was like, I don't know how I like totally missed that before. That cracks me up. All right. All right. So, oh, good there. Much, much better about that. You're like, all right. You're like, yeah, he knows how to edit. He can do math well. He's very mathematical. I was like, all right, my friends, math was never the strong suit. It was definitely always in the writing and the editing and words. It's like numbers. No. It cracks me up. All right. Well, thank you so much, my friends. I really appreciate that. Okay. So let me hop says, let's see. All right. And then let me see what I got over here. Yeah, Angs, and you were absolutely right. Thanks for sharing that with me. I need the feedback, like things like that, right? Otherwise I have the stuff wrong. Hey, what's up, Art? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are just in between readings. So let's get back on track. I'm going to hop into the next story. And what do I have next on deck? And I just saw you. I saw you in the chat. We're actually going to be hopping next into 8. And this is another revision of Welcome to Spellpaige Academia Middle School. This is a science fiction, slice of life, sci-fi slice of life fantasy. Yeah, so I'm super excited to hop into it. Zencast, we're going to be hopping into yours next. I know, and once again, I love this, right? So we've done a couple chapters from Zen's story before, and this story, we did a previous version of it on a previous critique stream, I think. Maybe about 2 months ago, I think it was about 2 months ago. And now we're going to see like the next version of it. And I love that, because then we can ask like, okay, well, what can we do to help make it better? Right. Because we want to help our writers. We want to help each other as much as possible. Because let me tell you, writing is a solitary process at times, but with the community, it's made so much easier. All right. So we're going to be hopping into your story next, Zen. And let's see. Mass test. You're like, one day I will submit a story. I promise. Totally no worries at all, my friend. I would say a lot of times in the community, we have writers who hop in who've never submitted stories, and we have writers who hop in who submit a lot of stories. And I think it really comes down to what is the value that you're getting out of it. And I think what my hope is that whether all writers that they come hang out, and then at some point when they feel like their story is in the right place and they want to share, that then they can share through the critique stream. And then once again, like we have different ways, right? So there's different avenues to get feedback with right now, whether you're doing the critique stream. I want to say there's 4 different ways for a writer to get feedback on their work in the WriteNow community. The story and critique stream is free. The Discord community is free, right? So you can go post it on the Discord chat. And then the 2 paid options is the YouTube channel membership. It's only the monthly is the $10 for the monthly critique group, or then writing services, which costs more, right? So I make sure that we have 2 free ones, 1 cheap one, and then one that costs a little more pricier, depending on what type of service you're going for. So I think that's really important to me, that there always be free options, because a lot of writers are on a budget and trying to figure out how to do it effectively, myself included. Okay, so let's hop into it, Zen. I got your story all pulled up here. All right. And let's see what we got. So like I said, this is a revision of a previous one. And let me see if I can pull up here. Let's see for Zen's. Okay. Uno momento. I got this screen all queued up for you. All right. So it looks like, yep, this is an updated version of chapter 3 for story. I was just looking here. Okay. Perfect. So, all right. And I think I am all ready. Welcome to Spellpaige Academia Middle School, sci-fi slice of life fantasy by author Zencast. Chapter 3. As I left home behind, the early morning air felt crisp and full of promise. With Ray's drawing tucked safely in my bag and my parents' words echoing in my heart, I made my way through the bustling streets toward the teleportation station. Excitement pulsed through me. Spellpaige Academia awaited in Honesto City on planet Mahojo 6. Spring was in the air. The scent of blooming flowers drifted on the breeze, while birds filled the morning with cheerful songs. Vendors opened their shops, arranging vibrant displays as hollow ads flickered above the crowd. People moved like currents around me, voices, colors, movements, until a familiar voice cut through it all. Well, snap me down, it's Tomoko. I turned to see Mr. and Mrs. Tabas outside the Meiki supermarket, longtime neighbors. They'd always been like a second set of parents to me. Morning, Mr. and Miss Tabas, I called. Mr. Tabas stepped forward, eyes sparkling. Tomoko, you look amazing in that uniform, so mature with the tie and blazer. Blushing, I waved her off. Stop it, you're embarrassing me. Miss Tabas chuckled. Seriously, though, you've grown taller and stronger, too. You're doing great, kid. He pulled me into a... Mr. Tabas chuckled. Seriously, though, you've grown taller and stronger, too. You're doing great, kid. He pulled me into a playful headlock. Try not to suffocate her, dear, Miss Tabas sighed, theatrically. I laughed, smoothing my hair back into place as they stepped toward the supermarket. Just before disappearing inside, Mr. Tabas tossed something my way. Little pre-entrance gift. Catch you later, Tomoko. Good luck. You earned it, Miss Tabas added with a proud smile. I looked down. It was Miss Tabas's famous candy trout. The sweet, rich aroma of caramelized glaze wrapped around me. Their kind words and thoughtful gift filled me with warmth as I continued toward the station, popping a bite into my mouth. While walking, I spotted 2 familiar figures ahead, cat-eared girls in red seifuku. My heart leapt. Tamari and Asu. And Asu. Tamari's raven black hair curled neatly around her face. Her porcelain skin glowed under the morning sun, and a finely crafted prosthetic gleamed on her left arm. A fluffy tail twitched behind her, her turquoise eyes sparkling like the sea. Asu stood slightly behind, brushing thick chestnut hair from her oval glasses. Her silver gray hair shimmered, and her lion-like tail swayed gracefully as she stepped forward. They sprinted towards me and wrapped me in a tight hug. I can't believe you're really leaving today, Tamari said, wistful. Still sucks you're not coming to our school, but I get it. Just call us if you get homesick, okay? Yeah, and let's take a selfie before you go, Aosu added, already unlocking her phone. We huddled together, heads touching, and flashed goofy grins. The hollow camera snapped, freezing the moment forever. As they pulled away, Tamari adds, "Don't forget to check your emails later." I promised I would and waved goodbye, turning once again toward the station. As I walk into the station, I feel the memories flashing through my mind, the good and bad. I remember celebrating birthdays, running on sports day, crying on my mom's lap, going to my granddad's house for summer vacation. I felt my eyes sting when I was thinking about Vanessa. Oh, how I miss her. Shaking my head frantically, I remind myself I'll be back home in a few weeks. It's not like I'm leaving for college or going off to war. The Mikey teleport station rose ahead, a marvel of glass and light. Its spiral towers shimmered in the sun, scattering prismatic flares across the pavement. Hoverpods zipped overhead. The whole place thrummed with energy, like magic and tech breathing in sync. I paused at the entrance, heart racing. Inside, the station buzzed with motion, parents embracing children, students rolling hover luggage, sleek security drones weaving through the crowd. Attendants in iridescent uniforms offered gentle guidance to travelers. At an info booth shaped like a glowing lotus blossom, a kind attendant greeted me and pointed me toward the gate for Spellpaige on planet Mahojo 6. I swallowed hard and stepped forward, nerves and excitement mixing in my chest. But just as I approached the gate, I stopped in my tracks. A crowd had gathered at platform 8. Security drones hovered with blinking red lights. A glitch in the boarding scanner had caused a full lockdown. "Attention," a staff member announced. "Due to a magical interference error, boarding for platform 8 is temporarily suspended. Please remain calm while we resolve the issue." My heart sank. No, not now. I clenched the candy trout wrapper in my pocket. I couldn't be late, not today. Looking around, I spotted a technician muttering to himself near a panel of runes fizzing with static. Thinking fast, I stepped closer. Excuse me, is there a backup gate to Honesto?" I asked. The man grunted. "Gate 9. Secondary teleport pod. Not listed on public maps, but it's there if you're fast." "Thank you." Without waiting, I dashed to the crowd, dodging suitcases and slipped past a food kiosk selling firecracker noodles. My lungs burned, but I didn't stop until I spotted the emergency stairwell marked authorized only. I whispered a minor disguise term, just enough to dull the rune lock, and slipped through. Moments later, I burst into gate 9. An old attendant raised an eyebrow. "Cutting it close, kid." "I know!" I panted. "Is this headed for Spellpaige?" He nodded slowly. "You've got spirit. Go now." As I sank into my seat, breathless and trembling, I let out a shaky laugh. The teleportation pod thrummed to life beneath me. The magic tech spun up, runes glowing with light. I closed my eyes, the chaos behind me. Whatever came next, the friendship, discovery, danger, I was ready. This was just the beginning. End reading. Wow, 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 wow. Zencast. What an excellent improvement. What an awesome improvement. I have to say, I loved what you did with that revision. I feel like the notes that you took from the last time you had it on this critique stream was actually really, really well done. I if the overall pacing of the chapter felt pretty smooth. There's a couple opportunities here and there for cleaning up like grammar, a little wordiness, and some tense issues. But overall, with this draft where it's at, it's like ready for editing. So I would say overall, it's ready for editing. There's a couple minor tweaks you could probably still make yourself, but I would say that there's definitely yeah. So I would say overall, like developmentally, it's in a really good place. So overall, I was actually really, really happy with what we saw. I felt much more engaged and connected to the main character this time. I felt much more engaged with the main character, and I feel like I didn't get lost in excessive wordiness. I felt like I was clear what was going on. We got her with the couple, we got her with the older couple, then her with the friends, and then her rushing through the platform 8, and then having to kind of come up with her plan, which was cool. And I thought that actually worked well. I thought that it flowed really, really well. I asked myself, could anything be added to it? You probably could add like maybe another paragraph, a description on what like what it looks like in traveling when she goes from platform 8 to get to the school. I think that was a little fuzzy, but I don't think it detracted from the overall story. So very, very good job. Character feels good, plot feels good. World building, how do I feel? World building feels, you actually had some really nice world building moments. Actually, you had some really nice world building moments. So let's hop into it. And we don't want that. All right, so let's hop into and see what we see. So let's see, chapter 3. Okay. Oh, so this is a grammatical issue. You overuse em dashes a little bit in the overall chapter. I would say I want you to, let me see if I will do control find. I probably won't do an em dash. I wonder if it'll look up em dashes for me. So, okay, so in chapter 3, you have 11 uses of em dashes. So you have 11 em dashes out of a 10-page document. That means you're doing 1 to 2 em dashes per page. Now, with our non-traditional, oh my God, word blank. I'm like, my word blank. I was like, oh God, non-traditional, oh my God, I'm having such a word for it right now. Punctuation. I'm like, oh God, it's so stupid. I'm like, punctuation. Like, oh yeah, he knows what he's talking about. Okay, so with this is just a really quick call out for punctuation. Now, I know I've talked about it before, but I always like to share this with writers. With non-traditional types, em dashes, ellipses, parentheses, you want to use them more sparingly. Here's why. Generally, you want punctuation to be invisible because it should be supporting the text. That's why periods, generally we don't think about periods because they're generally invisible. Exclamation marks, a little bit more debatable on time depending on how you're using it. But for these other ones, em dashes, parentheses, ellipses, to name a few, the reason you don't want them to stand out as much is because since they're not used as frequently, they lose their power. Since readers don't see them as much, the more that you use them, the more readers' attention is then called to them, and then the more that they lose the effect that you want them to have. So that is why with those types of punctuation, a less is more approach is always the right choice. So with things like em dashes, and this wasn't just for you, Zencast, I see this with writers like all the time. But what I would say is read out the sentence out loud. So I'll show you here. Like, this is a really good way to practice for em dashes of, does my sentence require an em dash? Remember, an em dash is an immediate thought interrupt. It is interrupting the thought with a completely different thought. So read it aloud, but read it with an interrupt and see, does it sound the way that it needs to sound? And is it important for it to be interrupted? Excitement pulsed through me. Spellpaige Academia waited in Honesto City. Right? So it's an interrupt, right? Excitement pulsed through me. Spellpaige Academia awaited in Honesto City. Maybe it's important, maybe it's not. You as the author get to make that decision. So that would be my that would be my recommendation, right? Because then we use it twice here. Yeah, so I would just say, look at your em dashes. Let's see, people move like currents around me. But by the way, I loved your descriptions here, though. Vendors, I think your setup for what this market, this like bustling street, looks great. It was very straightforward. Vendors opened their shops, arranging vibrant displays as hollow ads flickered above the crowd. People moved like currents around me, voices, colors, movement, until a familiar voice cut through it all. And I think overall, the overall description is really, really good. And I think it's simple, it's straightforward, and it tells me the visualization that I need to understand where the character is at. And of course, I still love Mr. Tabas. Mr. Tabas is my favorite character. Well, snap me down. It's but I'm laughing for the right reasons because it's such a great piece of dialogue. And I think this just goes to show, right? The more unique we make dialogue, right? The more I feel like, okay, Mr. Tabas, it feels like it gives them a personality in one piece of dialogue. So this is just a really, really great example. And I think I remember, if I recall correctly, Zen, I think you said you had pulled it from like something like a much older text. And I mean, that's great, right? We learn from other industries, we learn from other styles, and we say things that work well. White's here. Tomorrow it's just like I'm using, well, snap me down when I visit my brother tomorrow. Oh man, I'm totally gonna be thinking of this the next time I meet somebody. I just like love it so much. And then their overall conversation is great. So it's really good. I think I think I remember liking it before, but it's straightforward. It's great. You can tell it's playful. He tosses her the tree. I think this is a nice pre setup. No conflicts there. Then Tamari and Asu. So I think overall this is a little clearer this time. I have a clear visualization of who each of her friends are. The only adjustment that I would make is I would actually split up their setup between the dialogue. So that, because what you do right now is you do the setup, the description for both the girls, and then you do the bit of dialogue leading into the camera shot. I think to make it a little easier on the reader, I would introduce Tamari, and I think Tamari's the first one that speaks, I believe. Yep. So I would actually do it like this. I would introduce Tamari, a fluffy tail, and this is just my recommendation. This is subjective, but I think it would make it easier on the reader. And I would split up the dialogue. So I would do Tamari introduction. I would do dialogue. So then we get Tamari setup and dialogue. Still sucks you're not coming to our school. And then you might, of course, like have to adjust like the action if you did go with that, because they sprint towards her. Just call us if you get homesick. Like maybe I would just do like this here. I would do the initial one, and I think I would just mess around with it. And then Asu stood slightly behind, brushing thick chestnut hair. Then we do the Asu setup. And then I think I would do still sucks you're not coming to our school. But again, just call us if you get homesick. Graceful as she stepped forward. Or actually, what I would do, actually, I think what I would do, they sprinted toward me because they had this. I think actually what I think would work is I might Tamaru and Asi, and I think I might have them sprint up. They sprinted toward me. They sprinted toward me and wrapped me in a tight hug. I think I would do it like that, and then do Tamari setup, dialogue, Asu setup, dialogue, and then we move to the camera moment. Perfect. And I think that lets the reader then be like, okay, Tamari, and by the way, great descriptions for both of them. Great descriptions for both of them, by the way. Raven black hair, porcelain skin, and they have some like prosthetic on her arm and a fluffy tail. Cool. A fluffy tail twitched between her turquoise eyes sparkling like the sea. Love it. And then we get Asu, the one with the glasses and the chestnut hair, silver gray eyes. Great description. And I think this achieves what it needs to. It's short, it's to the point, and I think that works. And then we get to the station. We have her little trip down memory lane. Again, there's a little bit of character development here. That's fine. And I think this is fine because it's brief. And it doesn't pull us too out of the present moment. But we're going back to Vanessa, right? And I think this is a callback to, I believe, you mentioned Vanessa in the prologue or chapter 1, I believe. And I loved. So once again, this is you've just done such a good job with your descriptions. I think you did a really good job with this. The Meiki teleport station rose ahead, a marvel of glass and light. Its spiral towers shimmered in the sun, scattering prismatic flares across the pavement. Hoverpods zipped overhead. The whole place thrummed with energy, like magic and tech breathing in sync. Perfect. You get the point that you need to go. You could totally go way more description, go way less, but I think this was a good deal since we're not really going to be there for that long, but I think it achieves what it needs to achieve. So really, really nice work on that. And then we get to the station. That's fine. And then the problem with the attention, right? It's a problem. Now she has to get to school. Okay, that's right. So it's a secondary teleport pod. Okay, so see Russ's dodging. I whispered a minor disguise charm, just enough to dull the rune lock and slip through. I might just describe what is a rune lock. I don't know what a rune lock is. I'm assuming that you need to have, say, some type of rune to enter it, but I might just describe that because I don't know what a rune lock means. I'm assuming it is some type of magical spell that blocks a certain type of person from walking through into the teleport pod, but might just a little, like a brief description. Moments later, I burst into gate 9. This was good. Yeah, so actually, I think this was fine. I think that transition was actually fine. I think I just wanted a better I think I want a better understanding of what does a teleport pod look like? Like, what is a teleport pod? Is it like a glowing like oval? Is it like there's a gate and then it lifts and then it's like a beam me up, Scotty, like a Star Trek type vibe, like, or is it like a glow when you walk into it? I think I just want to know what a teleport pod looks like, and that could just be a me subjective thing. All right. All right. And then we get to this last part. So, like, as I sink into my seat, breathless and trembling, and let out a shaky laugh. Teleportation pod, magic text spun. I closed my eyes, the chaos behind me. Whatever came next, friendship. Yeah, and I think this is fun. I think when I thought about it, I was like, okay, maybe you want like a setup of like the room, but it's like, no, you're gonna do that setup next, probably in the next chapter. This is fine. I love this, by the way. This was just the beginning. Really great call. Great work. I love it. Nice. So yeah, Zen, really, really great work on the revision. That's all that I got for you, my friend. Really, really nice work. So thank you so much for submitting that. As always feel free to submit later chapters or other versions of your story. So excellent. And I could tell the community really loved it as well. By the way, W2C, welcome, my friend. Teleport is a fedora cap. That's exactly what it is. It's just a giant fedora. Oh my god. All right, guys, it's going to be my next story. It's going to be dragons wearing, wait for it, fedoras. Dragons wearing fedoras. That cracks me up. Let's see. And then let's see, what do we got? Let me catch up in the comments. How are you doing, by the way? Are you guys enjoying it? I feel like I've had such a great time reading the stories. I think I will have enough time. I think I can do one more. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, so I think I can have enough time for one more. I have to see what we have here. Let's see. Give me just a second. Let me pull up my critique stream. So thank you all for joining in the conversation. We've definitely had some really, really great comments. And by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, share it with a friend. We have so many different styles of writers in the community. But as you can see from the chat, the more styles of writers we have, the more from different genres and different backgrounds, the better feedback that you get on your stories. So tap that share button, help us bring more variety of writers into the channel, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, so that is what I got, and let's see. So I'm looking at the critique stream. Let's see. And I'm looking because I know I saw you guys submitted a couple more excerpts. Let's see. And then how many new ones did we do today? So we started off with, what was that? Engi's was a new writer to the community. We did that. There was a sci-fi. Then we did Angels. I don't think we've gone one from Angel. Then we did Calvin's and Zen. So, okay, right now we're tied at 2 new and 2 community members. So let me see what we got here. Bear with me one moment. All right. And I think we got another new one here. So let's see what we got. White's here. Thank you so much. I saw that you had submitted that as well, my friend. W2C, the Fedora Chronicles. W2C, you crack me up. Awesome. So let me just see here. All right. And I'm pulling up here. All right. Bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves. All right, so let's do this one. I think this one will mix up our style that we got for today. Um yeah. Okay. So I see what we got here. So let's do this one. I see one. All right. Bear with me just one moment. All right. And I am not quite sure. Ooh, this is an interesting genre author. And let's go. All right. So I've just pulled up another one. I got a little bit of a translation here. I'm gonna have to see what this means. All right, perfect. So I got this next one up next. So what we're going to do is we're going to welcome another new submission, a new writer that I'm seeing here in the community, Heather. I'm going to pull up your story, The Function of an Artist. So we're going to do, it's called The Function of an Artist, and it's fantasy. The genre is fantasy slash, and I will have no clue how to pronounce that. Let's see. How does one pronounce that? Uh, I was like, yeah, I have no clue. Constelloman. I was like, yeah, I have no clue how to pronounce that word in German. But what it does mean, so the genre of it, so it's fantasy slash artist's novel. Derived from German for artist novel is a literary genre focusing on the development of an artist, often depicting their journey towards self-discovery and mastery of their craft. It's a subgenre of coming of age stories, but specifically centers on the artistic growth and struggles of a protagonist. So I think this is going to be really interesting. I think we're going to dive into a different style, which I'm super excited about. So let me pull up yours. Let's see, give me just a second. All right. And I think I am already on my end. So let's queue up here and we will see what we see. So, Heather, we're going to start hopping to your story and we'll see what we got. The Function of an Artist, a fantasy uh, artist coming of age story by author Heather W. Adams. Come on, Callias. Nelos looked back over his shoulder with the air of a man 4 minutes from grabbing his friend and literally dragging him through the streets. Callias didn't think he'd do it, but only because the artist's portfolio Nelos carried under one arm was too fragile to risk. I won't be late for my appointment just because you've got cold feet. I'm coming! But he stopped at the next corner to look north and south for traffic along the deserted avenue. It was only a little afternoon, and harsh light glared almost straight down to bounce off the stone sets of a carriageway. Still, the edge of the pedestrian crepido along the west side of the street was marked with hard-edged shadows. He expected to see trash there, too, playing with different intensities of shade, but there was no discarded cups, unworth the effort of returning to the papina, nor even the rags or discarded scraps of paper that littered the streets around the university. Surely the city's scopatras, charged with collecting dung and other waste from the streets overnight, weren't more diligent in Spercorum than in more respectable parts of town. Callias, Nelos danced impatiently on the opposite crepido. You can admire the sights on your own time. It's not as if there's much to admire. The avenue remained empty, and Nelos crossed from one side to the other in 3 swift strides. But still, Callias took the time to examine each cracked set he stepped. He might be uncharacteristic caution, but who could fault him for being careful? Nelos, obviously. I had to pay in advance for this appointment, you know. If we don't show up, the money's lost, and I'll have no hope of making up for my missed class. I need to record the current state of Cressida's bruises before they heal further. Still seems a bit perverse to me. Reluctantly, Callias caught up to his friend. Most artists strive for beauty and grace in their art, but your master Tiziano has you drawing battered women and rotting meat. It's not always women. Last term they went with Nerlin from the Stockwhip. But apparently the Stockwhip folks aren't as reliable at not picking up new bruises. Master Tiziano didn't put there himself. Rumor says Nerlin picked up marks from another client halfway through the healing process sequence, then tried to cover up by seeing a healer for those specific injuries. It didn't work? Of course it hadn't. If it had worked, there wouldn't be rumors for Nelos to pass along. Why not? The new welts overlapped his existing bruises, so there was a weird healed stripe down the middle of the purple-green, according to the rumor. Giotto says it wasn't that obvious, though, but with over a dozen students documenting their progress, it was pretty clear. Nilo shrugged. Magister Tiziano says it proves the value of what we do. Anyhow, evidence of meddling with injuries might be important during a trial, and almost all the students' work showed that a skilled artist could demonstrate it. Almost all? Callias stopped at the next crossing avenue, but Nilo swam behind him, preventing unseemly delay. What about the exceptions? They failed the course. If they're more interested in creating a credible narrative than documenting reality, Magister Tiziano says they need to stick to made-up subjects and not give forensic artists a bad name. But if we're doing portrait work, Magister John says passing blemishes should be overlooked. The function of an artist is not merely to record what any eye can see, but to use our skills to depict what is real. Nelos made a face. Feel free to overlook what I'm there to capture then, but quit stopping at every intersection as if I'm leading you to your doom. Most men our age would jump at a chance to see a woman without her clothes, and you're acting like it's some epic moral quandary. I just don't understand why it's necessary. Carlos looked both ways at the next crossing, but proceeded when Nelos cleared his throat. When I've been in a situation with our friend where taking our clothes off seemed like a good idea, it was just kind of intimate, vulnerable, and for goodness sake, Callias, you don't need to get naked. That's what we're paying Cressida to do. Still, Callias struggled to explain it. It's like taking your laundry to the stream and finding somebody there before you, halfway through their bath. If they're vulnerable and you're not, it's just not fair. Better to walk away and pretend you didn't see, you know? Nelos laughed. Sometimes, my friend, you are entirely too polite. I'd be more likely to sit and enjoy the show if they're cute. Who knows? They might slip and need somebody to come to their aid. Nilos! Kalos shoved the larger man's arm, though carefully. Like Nilos, he carried a single thin panel in his portfolio to serve as a support for today's sketches. That's awful. Being prepared to save a life? Certainly not. The man grinned. Besides, I was always taught it's better to bathe with a friend. If for no other reason than to have someone keep an eye out for people like you. But Nilo's laughter was infectious, and Callias shook his head. You're sure they won't mind there being two of us today? They charged me half again the normal cost to include you in the session, and I had to promise to be responsible for your good behavior. Nilo shrugged. You worry too much, Callias. It will be fine, as long as you don't touch Cressida without permission. Wait! Callias glanced askance at his friend. Didn't you say we were hiring a woman of negotiable virtue? One your magister beat until she was bruised and bloody 2 weeks ago? That seems a lot worse than simple touching. Negotiable is a good word for it, and I didn't negotiate for sex. I negotiated for an opportunity to paint her. Even with portraits, you sometimes need to adjust things. The fold of a mantle or the hang of a necklace. You're doing a nude study, Callias. If you need to adjust her clothing, something has gone sideways. Nilos frowned, thoughtfully. The necklace might be interesting, though. Her skin is pale enough that I could imagine dark stones standing out against her breast. Nilos! Callias felt heat rising into his face, and he hadn't even done anything. But it's courtesy anyway. I didn't say you couldn't touch her. I said you had to ask first and wait for her to agree, just as you would with any other person you approached. Manager Jan didn't always ask the models to sat for the class, but Callias had always been uncomfortable with that. He sighed. You're sure this will help with my clothed figure drawing? It should. There's a reason life drawing is mandatory from second year. If you learn how a body looks under the clothing, it's easier to understand why fabric drapes as it does. Then why isn't it offered in first year? Nilos grinned. To keep the tourists out. Tourists? You know, the ones who think it'd be fun to take one art class as a lark. By making life drawing a second year class, people have to finish at least one proper class before the university hires naked people they can ogle. I'm not interested in ogling her. Yes, I know. Nilo stepped in front of a red painted door set in a black stone wall. You've made that very clear. If I'd known what a fuss you'd make, I would have left half an hour earlier. Not left me behind? Nah, you're my friend. I won't let you miss a great opportunity just because you want to wimp out at the last minute. Nilos reached out to pull a cord that extended through the doorframe. Gee, thanks. Callias looked around. Why are we stopping? I thought you wanted to. The door opened. A blonde woman with unbound hair that cascaded over the shoulders of a pink robe stood within. Nilos. The woman smiled and pushed the door wide. And this must be your friend, Callias. Do come in. Cressida. Nilos returned her smile and glanced back at Callias. We're here. Now stop being such a wet washcloth and come in. All right. And end reading there. And reading. Wow. So really, really good job on that. What a different subject material to tackle, especially when you're tackling such especially when you're attacking sexuality like that. Yeah, that was a really strong submission. I think when I ask what works really well about it, I think their dialogue overall, the dialogue flows really, really naturally. I think there's some opportunities for cleaning up the dialogue, and I forgot to see what draft this was in. Let's see. This was a revising. Okay, yeah. So you're currently in a revision draft. So you're currently revising it. So yeah. So I think their overall conversation does work well. I think there's definitely opportunities for condensing each of their dialogues a little bit. I think my biggest opportunity would ask myself, in a lot of their dialogue, if you can cut down on some of the wordiness and still get to the same point. I felt like the first 2 pages felt kind of like there was a little wordy, but then once I got into it, once I was pulled, I was like, okay, there's the back and forth between these two characters. One is very much not worried and not concerned about sexuality, and the other one is like very worried and the gentleman and wants to be very courteous. So I think it's very clear about those two opposing character types, and I think you do a good job of setting up those two character types in the very, very beginning. Now I can tell this is definitely going to be a much stronger story and subject that you're tackling. Yeah. So this is definitely going to be a really strong piece that you're tackling. And I think you've set up the world very, very interestingly in that it sounds like one of them was like painting, but they're doing like naked body painting. But there's something that's going on with bruising and people being and like models being harmed. And I don't think I quite understood that concept of the world quite yet. I'm also not quite sure. So I think this is a really interesting look in world building, and I think world building is actually the opportunity with this piece. So let's get into it. Let me pull up here. So when I pull up from the piece from the beginning, I didn't highlight too much because I think the chapter does work and I was engaged. This was a nice opening. Your dialogue is definitely one of your strengths. You do a really good job with dialogue. I think, like I said, it just needs to be cut down a little bit on wordiness. So yep, and you do set up the city first. And then there's like a couple words that I think because it's in German, I just like don't know what they mean. And that could just be a language difference. Something that I weren't more diligent in Spurkorum than in more respectable parts of town. So what I would suggest is if this is going to be published for like an English audience, so I'm assuming it is. Then either adjusting the words where like an English audience might not know like spercorum, I just don't know what that means. Or if you're like, hey, I really want to keep you really want to keep those words in the language because that's part of the world, then do a glossary. You could do a glossary at the end, or at the bottom of the page. You could do like spercorum means at the bottom of the page. That's another way to go about it. Or you could always do it in parentheses. I'm not as much a fan of the parentheses type because then it kind of clutters the text a little bit every time you do it. But that is another option. So, Callius. Nalos dance impatiently on the opposite crepidio. And I just don't know what that means. I'm assuming that's like the opposite ledge or like a stairway, maybe. Um, but yeah, so interesting. And you can tell you have a really, really great sense of who your two characters are. And I think that was really, really strong because that's hard to accomplish. I had to pay in advance. Yeah, and like so I'll give you an example here, right? So you said I had to pay in advance for this appointment. If I were to just clean this up, and a lot of this is going to be more like line editing and cleaning up, but there's some things you can do yourself. So if I were to uh, make recommendations, I would go. I had to pay in advance for this appointment. Now, this is a really big thing. I need to record the current state of Cressa's bruises before they heal further. So what I would do is I would actually make this a separate I would actually make this its own dialogue because this is actually a really big that's this kind of a big thing. So I would actually add action here. I would add action here. So that way we can get the gist. Like Nilos obviously here, action, and then because this is interesting because then this really starts like the next bit of the narrative and will help me to understand what's going on with this part of the world because there's something like because like that's an intense thing. I need to record the current state of Cressa's bruises before they heal further. That's kind of like like what the heck is going on? How come he needs to record someone's bruises and then they go into this full conversation? So, and I think this is part of the world building that is really interesting. Most artists strive for beauty and grace in their art, but your master Tiziano has you drawing battered women and rotting meat. Like, what the heck? That's really dark, but it's interesting, right? So if you're interested in this, it for this type of reader, it's going to pull them into the world because you're like, okay, well, how come you have this artist who's teaching them to draw women who've been battered? Like there's something very dark about that, right? And it's set up at the very, very beginning. Let's see. And then he goes on to explain, right? It's not just women, it's in general. Mervyn says Nerlin. Right. So you could see here how not only I just cut this up and I'll have, if we don't show up, the money's lost and I'll have no hope of making up. And I'll have no hope of making up missed classes. Yeah, so I think and then even this, right? So like this is like a full on like block of text, and I would say like if you can find ways either to shorten it, cut down on the wordiness a little bit, or break it up, that will really really help you because you do that a couple times. But overall, like I said, the flowing and the pacing of the conversation works out really really well. And I think if you can cut down some of the wordiness, then I think that will help the reader be able to continue to keep track of like, okay, this like what's going on with this like bruising and this whole thing. And I felt like I had a pretty good understanding of their conversation by the time I was about maybe like a couple pages in. But then I was attracted more to their characters. I'm like, okay, well, see, you have the one guy who's kind of like the more just the dominant asshole, and then you have the other guy who's like the nice guy, and it's already a difference in values, which is creating tension very early on, which is well done. So okay, and let's see. And I think that's probably going to be like my same note throughout the piece. Let's see. Plot. I would say, how does the plotting feel? I think so far the plotting feels good. I feel like I'm intrigued. I kind of like I want to know like what's the difference of the artist because it sounds like this story is really going to take a deep dive into two different styles of what it means to be an artist. And especially with a type of artist who deals with like painting like darker type material, and then an artist who wants to paint like lighter type material, and really challenging and analyzing what art means for two different styles. And I think that's actually a really fascinating look. And I think stories like this have the potential to be able to create great conversations around certain styles of art. So I love the subject material that you're tackling, and I think I'm intrigued on how you will execute it throughout the story. So, and then we kind of get to the end. They finally get there, and I think it's what you just have such a good sense of their characters. Yeah, so I think that's everything that I got that really comes to mind. But I would say just once again, really really great work. I am so intrigued. I like want to know what's going to happen in that next chapter. I want to meet this like master who like does this like the really like dark painting of people who've been bruised and battered. I'm just curious. I'm like, is that, and you've just done a good job of setting up foreshadowing for pulling us in further, even though right now it's just them getting to the art class. So really, really great work, Heather. Thank you so much for submitting. And I hope that was able to help you out a little bit. And then once again, like I know you submitted like the full story. If you do want to submit for future like sessions, future critique streams, you can always resubmit the story. But then if it's like the full document, you just have to let me know where I left off, because like now I know I left off at chapter at the beginning of chapter 2, but if this is like a critique stream in like 2 weeks or a month or 2 months, I just might not remember that. Since like I said, I've done well over 200 stories critiqued on the story and critique stream. So awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that submission. That was so much fun. We've tackled some great stories today in a variety of different areas. If you hopped into the stream or you're watching this on the replay and you didn't get the chance for your story to be read, you can still submit. The link is down in the submission form down below. We will be having more critique shows every other week. We do this story and critique stream twice a month. So it's every other weekend right now. So if your story did not get read today, no worries. If you already submitted it, it's been re-queued up for the next story and critique stream. And if you're wanting feedback on your story, you should submit now. The sooner that you submit, the more likely you are to be able to get it into the critique stream. And you're like, hey, but I need feedback right now. The great thing is you can actually hop into our Discord, which is linked down in the YouTube description. And I can drop the Discord link for anyone who wants to come join us. But you can also drop your work down in the Discord. We have a feedback channel. Our Discord channel is actually super active. Let me pull up the Discord link for anyone who wants to come join us on Discord. That's another way to be able to get free feedback. But you guys know me, right? We stream every single day. I've streamed now 560 consecutive writing streams and counting, and many, many more. So let me throw up the WriteNow Discord. All right, perfect. Awesome. So I just dropped that. What are your Discord policies? Let's see. Tone. Definitely intrigued about how they as well. Yeah, blast. And I agree. There's like such a huge, and that's what I love about the critique stream. We've gotten stories that range in all genres. I feel like I've touched on every single at least major fiction genre throughout the course of the past 200 stories. So then that's what I love. I don't read any of the stories beforehand. What keeps it interesting for me is being able to cold read them and experience it with you as we're reading together. And then Angs, let's see, you have a great question here. You're like, what are your Discord policies on material intended for adults? So great question. That was actually a question that was asked in our Discord community very early on. We actually have a Discord, a part of the channel for adult material. So one of the channels on there, if you have material that is like adult content, that is sexual in nature, whether it might be artwork or whether it might be a story. We have a lot of writers in the community who like spicy material. Back in December, we did a huge writing conference, and one of the most popular speakers was the one who talked about writing spicy romantasy scenes. So we actually have a channel. You can actually post stuff in that channel, whether you're wanting a feedback or whether you just want to share for the community. So great question. And then anything that's not in that channel, because that one you have to click into, and I think when you click into the the adult, what's it called? It's under alternative writing format. So it's mature art and then mature and naughty stories. You have to like say that you're over 18, I think is what it does, but you have to specifically click into it. So great feedback. And then I completely agree with you. I think for anyone who doesn't understand, first off, what BDSM is, and then who's not familiar with the lifestyle or a lot of the terminology that is used in BDSM, I think it can be it can just be different or jarring, which is why, right, when writing stuff like stuff of that nature, I think it's always really great to understand like who is your readership, who is intended, right? If it's intended for people who partake in BDSM or who partake in the lifestyle, then that's different because they're going to understand. But if it's intended for a general audience, then you have to be able to set up and help bring the audience along who might not understand a lot of the terminology. So really great call out. I agree with them. So awesome. I dropped that Discord in there. And by the way, if you enjoyed the stream today and you're like, hey, I want to keep listening to stories. Go check out the story and critique stream playlist. It's called the Reading Sprints for Storytellers playlist. I can drop that in as well. Essentially, that's a collection of all of our story and critique stream shows, all 45 episodes. And I'll drop that in story and critique show playlist. Yeah. So if you want to go check out any of like the previous episodes, you're like, hey, I like that story. I kind of want to see what did that last chapter, the last one. All of the stories are listed on there. And then if you want to like go find a specific story, one of our community members, Courtney, our community book director, she actually put together an entire document that lists every single story that's ever been read with its time coded. It's in an Excel spreadsheet. If you want access to that, it's linked down in the YouTube description down below under every single video. So you can go check that out if you're wanting to find specific stories or you just want to go check out previous episodes. So yeah. And that is what I got for you today, my friends. It's been an absolutely great critique stream. I'll be back tomorrow with a channel members live stream. Tomorrow is a channel members live stream on YouTube. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about, do you need an audiobook for your story? Why do you need an audiobook? And how to make an audiobook for cheap. You could do it yourself. If you're not making an audiobook, if you've finished your story, you published it, and you don't have an audiobook version of it, you're leaving money on the table. So I'm going to walk you through that process, why it's important. And this is for our YouTube channel members. All you have to do, this is available for all tiers of the membership. The lowest tier is the $5 tier, and that gives you access to the members only live streams, the icons, the emojis, and then you could check out the other tiers we have. If you want to learn more, it's linked down in the YouTube description down below, or you can also click on that join button down beneath the YouTube video as well. If you're wanting to join us, that'll be tomorrow, 1 Pacific, 2, 3, 4 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see some of our channel members there. And then we'll be back with our daily live streams Monday, back into writing sprints, as I am trying to finish and help my character, the last scarecrow, survive this crazy Coliseum to the death in this in the novel. I'm almost at the midpoint of the second draft. So we'll see how that works out. And if you're also wanting to still get some writing in, like, hey, I feel like writing now. Chatsoul is actually doing their Discord only event, which is Write Chat right now. Hop over to the Discord. It's a co-working session. You don't have to have your camera on. You could just sit back, chill with some cool music, and go hang out with other writers. They've Chatsoul is going live. They're live right now. So go join us in the Discord if you just want to hang out, maybe chat with other writers, or just write and try to get some inspiration. All right, my friends, thank you all for joining. If you like this stream, tap that like button on your way out. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends, thank you for joining. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write
now. Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now.